In the quiet spaces between myth and history lies a story as old as time itself, a tale whispered by ancient stones and carried through generations in forgotten tongues. They were called giants, demigods, the first hybrids of heaven and earth. This is not just a legend, but an echo of a forgotten age, when celestial beings walked among mortals, and the world was forever changed. Let us journey into the shadows of the past, where the Nephilim once roamed, and uncover the mysteries they left behind. In the quiet stillness before history was written, when the world was young and mysteries walked openly among men, tales were whispered of beings unlike any others, towering figures who stood between heaven and earth, beings known as the Nephilim. Their story is not merely a chapter in ancient texts. It is a thread woven into the fabric of humanity's oldest memories, a tale of gods descending, of mortals entwined with the divine, and of giants who once roamed the lands beneath a sky heavy with secrets. Long before the rise of great civilizations, before empires etched their names into stone, there existed a time when the boundary between the celestial and the earthly was thin. A time when watchers from above cast their gaze upon the daughters of men. These watchers, known in ancient lore as the sons of God, were said to be celestial beings, guardians or observers sent to watch over the unfolding story of humankind. Yet, in the unfolding silence of eternity, even divine watchers grew curious, and from that curiosity blossomed desire. The ancient book of Genesis speaks softly of this moment, a brief passage shrouded in mystery. When the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, they took them as wives, choosing whomever they pleased. From this union, something entirely new emerged. Beings of immense stature and strength, neither fully divine nor fully mortal. The Nephilim, giants upon the earth, the first hybrids, walking testaments to a forbidden mingling of realms. These were not mere legends to the people of old. To them, the Nephilim were as real as the mountains and rivers, their footprints etched into the landscape, their deeds echoing through generations. Tales of their might, their knowledge, and their eventual downfall were passed from tongue to ear beneath star-lit skies. The Nephilim were seen as both wonders and warnings, symbols of what happens when the order of the cosmos is disturbed. But who were these watchers that defied the will of the heavens? In ancient texts beyond the Bible, such as the Book of Enoch, we find their names and their purpose. They were called the Grigori, a host of angels assigned to observe, not to interfere. Yet 200 of them, led by figures like Semyaza and Azazel, made a pact upon Mount Hermon, a vow to descend together and take for themselves wives from among humanity. It was a choice that would alter the fate of the world. As these celestial beings walked among mortals, they did not only sire giants, they brought with them forbidden knowledge. The secrets of the heavens were whispered into human ears. Knowledge of metallurgy, of enchantments, of the stars and the art of war. Mankind, still innocent in many ways, was suddenly thrust into an age of accelerated growth, but also into corruption and violence. The Nephilim, with their immense power, became rulers and tyrants, their hunger insatiable, their presence a shadow over the earth. The ancient world trembled beneath their feet. Stories tell of how these giants consumed the resources of the land, and when the earth could no longer sustain them, they turned upon mankind, devouring flesh and bringing ruin wherever they roamed. What began as a union of fascination and beauty soon spiraled into chaos. A world teetering on the edge of destruction, watched by silent heavens. Yet, even as darkness spread, the story of the Nephilim was far from over. The world beneath the looming presence of the Nephilim grew heavy with fear and wonder. The once peaceful rhythms of life were disrupted by the thunderous steps of giants, beings whose very existence was a defiance of nature's order. Villages nestled in valleys would look to the hills with dread, knowing that towering figures could appear at any moment. Their hunger vast, their strength beyond comprehension. The Nephilim were not bound by the laws of men, nor did they heed the cries of those who pleaded for mercy. But high above, in realms unseen by mortal eyes, the heavens watched in growing dismay. The watchers who had descended in defiance had unleashed a storm upon the earth, and the balance of creation teetered dangerously. The cries of humanity reached the ears of the divine, and judgment began to stir like distant thunderclouds forming on the horizon. Among the leaders of the fallen watchers, Azazel stood out, not only for his role in taking human wives, but for teaching mankind the art of war, the crafting of weapons, and the use of cosmetics to seduce and deceive. What was once hidden knowledge reserved for celestial beings was now scattered across the earth, fueling vanity, violence, and corruption. The Nephilim thrived in this world of chaos, their power unchallenged, their reign seemingly eternal. Yet, within this darkness, there remained a glimmer of purity. The ancient texts speak of a man named Enoch, a righteous figure who walked with the divine. Enoch became a bridge between heaven and earth, a scribe of celestial secrets chosen to witness the fate of both angels and men. It was through Enoch that the Watchers learned of their impending doom, a message delivered not with wrath, but with sorrow. The Watchers, realizing the gravity of their transgressions, pleaded with Enoch to intercede on their behalf, to beg for forgiveness. But the decree had already been set. The heavens would not overlook the corruption that had spread like a poison through creation. The sentence was clear. The Watchers would be bound in chains beneath the earth, imprisoned in darkness until the end of days, and their offspring, the Nephilim, would face a fate even more tragic. The Nephilim, despite their might, were not eternal. Though their bodies towered over men, they were still flesh, and the judgment upon them would be swift and absolute. The ancient world would soon witness a cataclysm designed not only to cleanse the earth of corruption, but to reset the course of humanity itself. As whispers of this coming doom spread, one family stood at the center of the unfolding story. A man named Noah, said to be pure in his generations, untouched by the bloodlines tainted by celestial interference. Guided by visions and warnings from above, Noah began the construction of an ark, a vessel not just of survival, but of renewal. While the Nephilim roamed freely, unaware or indifferent to the storm that brewed beyond the clouds, the seeds of salvation were being prepared in silence. Legends say that the Nephilim laughed at the idea of a flood, their massive forms confident that no waters could reach their heights. But the judgment of the heavens was not a mere rising of rivers. It was a deluge that would swallow mountains, a torrent that would wash away the sins of both angels and men. When the rains finally came, they fell not just from the sky, but surged from the depths of the earth, fountains of the deep bursting forth. The Nephilim, once feared as invincible, were swept away by waves of divine reckoning. Their cries echoed through the tempest, and their stories began to sink into the mud of forgotten time. Yet, the tale of the Nephilim did not end entirely with the flood. As the waters receded and the world emerged from beneath the veil of the great flood, a silence fell upon the earth, a stillness that spoke of both loss and renewal. The giants were gone, their towering forms buried beneath layers of silt and stone, their reign washed away by the will of the heavens. Yet, in the quiet aftermath, questions lingered like mist over the mountains. Could beings such as the Nephilim truly vanish without a trace? Or did echoes of their existence survive in ways unseen? Ancient traditions suggest that the blood of the giants did not entirely disappear with the floodwaters. Some texts hint at the possibility that not all of the Watchers' offspring were destroyed, that remnants of their lineage found a way to persist through hidden paths and forgotten corners of the world. The Book of Numbers, centuries after the flood, speaks of giants once more, of a people called the Anakim, descendants of a figure named Anak, whose stature struck fear into the hearts of those who encountered them. When spies sent by Moses ventured into the land of Canaan, they reported seeing giants, men of great size, saying, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." These were not mere exaggerations born of fear. They were accounts that revived the memory of the Nephilim. It was said that the Anakim were among those who had survived or re-emerged after the flood, and that their presence was a living reminder of an ancient transgression. The land of Canaan, rich and fertile, was also home to other giant clans, the Rephaim, the Emim, and the Zamzumim, names that carried with them the weight of forgotten ages. These tribes of giants became woven into the struggles of emerging civilizations, their fortresses towering, their warriors formidable. Heroes like Og, the king of Bashan, were described as the last of the Rephaim, his bed alone measuring over 13 feet in length, a silent testament to his immense size. But how did these giants remain when divine judgment had been so absolute? Some stories suggest that the wives of Noah's sons may have carried traces of the Watcher's blood, subtle remnants of celestial lineage passed down through generations. Others believe that new unions between fallen beings and humanity occurred after the flood, rekindling the presence of giants upon the earth. Whatever the truth, the shadow of the Nephilim stretched far beyond the floodwaters. As human civilizations rose from the cradle of survival, they carried with them stories of giants, not just in the Near East, but across the world. In the myths of Greece, the Titans were remembered as primordial giants who once ruled before the gods of Olympus. In Norse legends, the Jotnar, or frost giants, stood in opposition to the gods of Asgard. Native American tribes spoke of red-haired giants who roamed the lands before being driven into extinction. Across continents and cultures, the memory of towering beings persisted, as if humanity could not forget the time when giants walked among them. Even as cities grew and empires flourished, ancient ruins and massive stone structures whispered secrets of a past where human hands alone could scarcely explain their creation. Some believe that the knowledge imparted by the Watchers allowed early humans, perhaps aided by giants, to move stones weighing hundreds of tons, to build monuments that aligned with the stars, to carve legacies into the very bones of the earth. Yet, as centuries turned to millennia, the Nephilim faded deeper into legend, their bones, if they remained, hidden beneath layers of time. But the fear and fascination they inspired never truly left the human heart. The idea that beings of immense power once ruled, that they could rise again, lingered like a quiet warning carried on the wind. And so, the story of the Nephilim continued to live, not just in ancient texts, but in the collective memory of mankind. In the dim corridors of forgotten history, whispers of the Nephilim persisted, carried by travelers, scribes, and storytellers who spoke of giants not as myths, but as remnants of a world that once was. Across ancient lands, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the hills of Canaan to the distant shores of unknown continents, the legends took root, evolving, merging with local tales, yet always echoing the same truth, that once beings of immense size and power shaped the destiny of mankind. The Sumerians, among the earliest civilizations, told stories of mighty beings known as the Anunnaki, deities, or celestial figures who descended from the heavens to govern the earth. Some scholars have drawn parallels between the Anunnaki and the Watchers of biblical lore, suggesting that these ancient gods could be remembered fragments of the same tale. Powerful entities who interacted with humanity, imparted knowledge, and perhaps even fathered giants. In Egypt, the colossal statues and monuments stood as silent sentinels of a past where divine kingship was believed to originate from the gods themselves. Pharaohs were seen not merely as rulers, but as intermediaries between heaven and earth, descendants of gods who once walked among men. Could these beliefs be distant echoes of a time when celestial beings did indeed mingle with humanity, leaving behind bloodlines touched by the divine? As time stretched forward, stories of giants began to intertwine with the notion of sacred bloodlines, of royal families, who claimed descent from gods or ancient heroes of great stature. These claims were not always metaphorical. In many cultures, rulers traced their lineage to beings who were said to possess extraordinary power and wisdom. The Nephilim legacy, it seemed, had shifted from physical giants to the idea of inherited greatness, a divine spark carried through chosen bloodlines. Yet not all memories of the Nephilim were revered. In many traditions, they were remembered as cautionary figures, symbols of hubris, corruption, and the consequences of crossing boundaries set by the divine. Their fall was seen as inevitable, a reminder that even those born of celestial origins could not escape the laws of balance and order. The Watchers, once majestic beings, became examples of how desire and defiance could lead to ruin. But beyond the myths and moral lessons, there have been those who sought tangible proof of the Nephilim's existence. Throughout history, explorers and archaeologists have uncovered enormous skeletal remains, bones far larger than any known human. While many of these discoveries were dismissed, lost, or labeled as hoaxes, they fueled the belief that giants were not merely figures of legend. Old newspaper articles from the 19th and early 20th centuries tell of giant skeletons unearthed in North America, Europe, and Asia, often quickly seized by institutions or left to fade into obscurity. Some point to the Smithsonian Institution, alleging that it played a role in hiding evidence that could rewrite human history. Whether truth or conspiracy, the fascination with giant remains has never waned. For to find the bones of a Nephilim would be to bridge the gap between myth and reality. The lore of the Nephilim also seeped into mystical and esoteric traditions. Secret societies and occult groups whispered of ancient knowledge passed down from the days when Watchers walked the earth. They spoke of hidden teachings, of lost sciences, and of the potential locked within human DNA remnants of a hybrid race that once held the keys to both earthly dominion and celestial wisdom. As the modern world marched forward, embracing science and skepticism, the tales of the Nephilim found a new home not in temples or around campfires, but in books, films, and the endless corridors of the internet. The giants became subjects of speculation, their story woven into theories about ancient aliens, lost civilizations, and the mysteries that conventional history could not explain. Yet, beneath all the interpretations and retellings, a simple, haunting question remained. What if the stories were true? What if the Nephilim were not just relics of imagination, but a forgotten chapter of human existence, waiting to be remembered? As centuries drifted into the modern age, the story of the Nephilim did not fade. It transformed. The mysteries surrounding these ancient giants began to intertwine with new interpretations, fueled by archaeology, theology, and a growing curiosity about humanity's distant past. Though the world had changed, the allure of the Nephilim remained a puzzle stretching across time, inviting seekers to uncover fragments hidden beneath layers of myth and forgotten history. Many turned their attention to the ancient texts, believing that within the cryptic passages of sacred scriptures and apocryphal writings lay the keys to understanding what the Nephilim truly were. The Book of Enoch, once lost to the Western world but preserved in Ethiopian tradition, emerged as a cornerstone for those seeking deeper insight. It painted a vivid picture of the Watchers, their descent, and the chaos they unleashed upon the earth. This book spoke of how the Watchers taught humanity not only practical skills but also dark arts, enchantments, astrology, and secrets that were never meant for mortal minds. The Nephilim, born from this union of forbidden knowledge and celestial defiance, became embodiments of imbalance, too powerful for the world of men, too flawed for the realm of the divine. It was a story of boundaries crossed and consequences that echoed through generations. As scholars and theologians debated the meanings hidden within these ancient words, others searched for physical traces, evidence that could anchor the legends in reality. Megalithic sites around the world became focal points for these investigations. The towering stones of Baalbek, with their colossal foundations, seemed to defy human capability. Local legends claimed that giants once moved these stones with ease, constructing platforms that still baffle modern engineers. In South America, the massive walls of Sacsayhuaman, with stones fitted so precisely that not even a blade of grass could slip between them, raised similar questions. Were these the works of advanced ancient humans, or did giants, perhaps remnants of the Nephilim bloodline, lend their strength to such endeavors? The idea that traces of these hybrid beings lingered in the monuments of the ancient world captivated the imagination. But beyond stone and bone, there were whispers of something even more enduring, the possibility that the Nephilim influence was not entirely a relic of the past. Some believed that the ancient bloodlines, born of the union between Watchers and humans, had survived through careful preservation. Hidden within royal families, secret societies, or elite circles that traced their heritage back to those early days of celestial contact. This theory suggested that the power once held by the Nephilim had transformed from brute strength into something more subtle, influence over knowledge, governance, and the shaping of civilization itself. The giants no longer walked openly among men, but their legacy continued in the shadows, guiding the course of history from behind veils of secrecy. In parallel, religious traditions warned that the Watchers who had been bound beneath the earth were not gone forever. Prophecies spoke of a time when these ancient beings or their spirits would rise again, bringing with them a resurgence of the chaos that once threatened to consume the world. The Nephilim, it was said, could return in some form, perhaps not as towering giants, but as forces that would challenge the balance between heaven and earth once more. Modern interpretations even extended into discussions about genetic manipulation and the advancements of science. Some speculated that humanity's pursuit of altering its own DNA echoed the ancient story. A new chapter in the quest to transcend mortal limitations, just as the Watchers had once sought to merge celestial essence with human form. Were we unknowingly walking the same path that led to the rise and fall of the Nephilim? As these ideas circulated, blending ancient lore with contemporary fears and hopes, one thing became clear. The story of the Nephilim was far more than a tale of giants. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest questions about origin, purpose, and the boundaries we are willing or destined to cross. And so, the legend endures, whispered in quiet corners, pondered beneath starlit skies, a reminder that some stories are never truly confined to the past. As night falls over the ancient landscapes, where the Nephilim once roamed, the weight of their story lingers in the stones, in the winds that sweep across forgotten ruins, and in the quiet wonder of those who still seek traces of their existence. Though millennia have passed, the fascination with these giants, these beings born of two realms, remains as potent as ever. Not merely because of their size or strength, but because of what they represent in the human imagination. The tale of the Nephilim is, at its core, a story about the crossing of boundaries, the blending of the divine and the mortal, the known and the forbidden. It speaks to a deep-rooted curiosity within humanity, a desire to reach beyond what is permitted, to touch the stars while still anchored to the earth. The Watchers, in their defiance, embodied this yearning, and in doing so, they altered the course of human history forever. In many ways, the Nephilim became symbols of both the heights and depths to which such ambition can lead. Their birth was a marvel, a testament to the possibilities that arise when celestial power mingles with human potential. Yet their existence also ushered in an era of imbalance, of knowledge untempered by wisdom, of strength unchecked by compassion. The giants were not merely victims of divine punishment, they were reflections of a world that had strayed too far from harmony. Throughout history, echoes of this theme can be found in countless myths and legends beyond those directly mentioning giants. Tales of gods descending to interact with humans, of demigods born from these unions, of heroes possessing extraordinary abilities but burdened by tragic fates. Figures like Hercules in Greek mythology, Gilgamesh in Mesopotamian lore, or even the legendary kings of ancient dynasty Saul hint at a shared memory of beings who stood between worlds. These stories, scattered across cultures, suggest that the phenomenon of divine human hybrids was not isolated to a single tradition. Rather, it was a universal motif, a lingering imprint of a time when such unions were not just possible, but prevalent. The Nephilim, under different names and guises, may have walked among many peoples, leaving behind legends tailored to each culture's understanding of the cosmos. As the centuries wore on, these tales were often reshaped by religious doctrines, political agendas, or the simple erosion of memory. What began as accounts of real encounters may have been softened into allegory, or deliberately obscured to prevent mankind from revisiting forbidden paths. Yet, despite efforts to bury or reinterpret the past, the allure of the Nephilim persisted, like a faint melody remembered from a dream. In more recent times, the story of the Nephilim has found new life within the realms of alternative history and speculative thought. Writers, researchers, and enthusiasts have pieced together fragments from ancient texts, archaeological anomalies, and global folklore, proposing that the official narrative of human history is incomplete, that there once existed a race of beings who challenged the very definition of what it meant to be human. Theories emerged suggesting that the Nephilim were not merely mythic giants, but part of a broader tapestry involving extraterrestrial contact. That the Watchers were not angels in the traditional sense, but advanced beings from beyond our world, whose interactions with early humanity shaped civilizations and left behind a legacy encoded in both our myths and our genetics. While mainstream academia often dismisses such ideas, the persistence of these theories speaks to a collective intuition that the past holds secrets far stranger and more profound than we dare to imagine. The megalithic structures, the sudden leaps in human knowledge, the recurring legends of sky beings and giants all point toward a forgotten chapter waiting to be rediscovered. And so, as modern explorers delve into ancient mysteries, scanning the earth with satellites and uncovering ruins lost to jungle and desert sands, the question remains alive. Did the Nephilim truly walk among us? Were they giants of flesh and bone, or symbols of a greater cosmic interaction that forever altered the destiny of mankind? The answers may lie buried beneath our feet, or hidden in plain sight within the stories we've carried through the ages. In the stillness of ancient libraries and temple vaults, among scrolls crumbling with time and stones etched with forgotten glyphs, the presence of the Nephilim can still be felt. Not as ghosts, but as echoes. Their story, though rarely told in full, weaves through the most sacred and secretive traditions, an undercurrent of knowledge preserved by those who suspected that history is deeper than the surface we're shown. From the halls of mystery schools to the whispered rites of forgotten sects, the legacy of the giants was not lost, only hidden. In the deserts of the Middle East, stories endured of beings who towered over men and shaped the very landscape. Bedouin tribes passed down tales of bones uncovered in shifting sands. Bones so large they defied belief. In the highlands of Armenia and the Caucasus, old families recalled giants who once strode between mountain peaks, their steps forming valleys and their hands carving stone. Even in remote islands of the Pacific, legends of long-limbed beings with strange powers were told beside flickering fires, as if the Nephilim had wandered farther than the earliest maps could trace. But beyond folklore and oral tradition, there were ancient text fragments unearthed in caves and temples that spoke more plainly. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in the 20th century, contained portions of the Book of Enoch and other writings that further illuminated the story of the Watchers and their offspring. They confirmed what had long been hinted, that the Nephilim were not simply mythic exaggerations, but a profound disruption in the divine order. A rupture that had real consequences for the world. These texts spoke of a war in the heavens, a celestial rebellion, led by those who chose to descend and mix their essence with humankind. It wasn't merely a romantic or tragic mistake. It was a calculated act that introduced chaos into a world still in its infancy. The Nephilim were the result. Born not in love, but in defiance. Their existence a challenge to the balance set by the Creator. And because of them, the earth was said to groan under the weight of corruption. A sorrow that led ultimately to the flood. But after the flood, the threat was not gone. The Watchers were bound, imprisoned in shadowy realms, yet their influence lingered. Some traditions suggest that their spirits, disembodied and restless, became what later cultures would call demons. Malevolent forces that sought to re-enter the physical world, to reclaim the dominion they once held through fear, deceit, and manipulation. And as for the Nephilim themselves, if their physical forms perished, their legacy remained. In bloodlines, in buried cities, in knowledge locked within the symbols of sacred geometry and the alignments of ancient monuments. Some say they encoded their wisdom into structures built to last through the ages. Pyramids, ziggurats, stone circles, all arranged not randomly, but in accordance with celestial patterns. These places, it's believed, hold the memory of a time when gods walked with men and giants ruled. In the modern world, these ideas have found fertile ground, not merely in fringe circles, but in the minds of scientists, historians, and seekers who sense that something is missing from the conventional narrative. Why do so many cultures speak of similar beings? Why are their structures older and more precise than we can easily explain? Why does the memory of giants persist even when it's dismissed? There are those who believe the answer lies not only in history, but in the human soul, that we carry within us a faint recollection, a spiritual memory of those ancient days. The Nephilim, then, are not just physical anomalies or ancient rulers, they are part of our archetypal past. Figures that remind us of both the dangers of power and the mysterious origins of our own existence. And perhaps that's why the story endures, not as a tale of monsters or heroes, but as a meditation on what it means to be human, to stand between earth and sky, to reach for the stars while carrying the weight of flesh and spirit. As twilight settles over the remnants of ancient worlds, the question arises: were the Nephilim merely creatures of flesh and bone, or were they something far more complex beings whose presence touched not only the physical realm but also the spiritual and metaphysical layers of existence? Many traditions hint that the giants were not simply larger versions of men, but entities imbued with a power that transcended the ordinary, a blend of celestial energy and earthly form that made them both magnificent and dangerous. Some accounts describe the Nephilim as possessing abilities far beyond brute strength, an innate understanding of the natural and supernatural worlds, the ability to manipulate elements, to command beasts, and to influence the minds of men. This was not magic in the sense of illusion, but a deep resonance with forces that modern understanding has only begun to glimpse. In this light, the Nephilim were not just giants, they were living conduits between dimensions, their very existence a distortion of the balance intended for the world. Such power, however, came at a cost. The same texts that speak of their might also describe their insatiable hunger not only for food, but for dominance, knowledge, and control. The Nephilim, it is said, consumed more than the earth could provide, turning upon mankind when resources ran thin. Their reign became one of terror, where cities cowered under their gaze, and the cries of the oppressed reached into the heavens. It was in this era of despair that ancient humanity began to understand the consequences of mingling with the divine without guidance or restraint. The Watchers, who once appeared as luminous beings descending from the stars, were now seen as fallen, corrupted not only by desire, but by the weight of their own choices. And their children, the Nephilim, became the ultimate symbol of that fall, too great to belong among mortals, yet too flawed to ascend back into the heavens. Yet even amidst this darkness, stories emerged of resistance, of human heroes who dared to stand against the giants. These tales, scattered across cultures, speak of warriors, often aided by divine favor, who confronted the Nephilim and their kin. In biblical lore, the most famous of these confrontations would come generations later, when a young shepherd named David faced Goliath, a descendant of giants. Armed only with a sling and faith, David's victory was not just over a single warrior, but over a legacy of fear that stretched back to the days of the Watchers. This motif, the mortal overcoming the giant, became a recurring theme in mythologies worldwide. It reflected a deeper truth, that despite the overwhelming power of the Nephilim, they were not invincible. Their downfall was woven into the very fabric of their creation, beings born of defiance, destined to fall by the hands of those they once sought to dominate. As civilizations advanced, the physical presence of giants may have faded, but the archetype remained. The Nephilim became embedded in the collective consciousness as symbols of hubris, forbidden knowledge, and the dangers of overreaching. Yet they were also remembered with a certain reverence, as reminders of a time when the world was filled with wonders and terrors beyond modern comprehension. In more mystical interpretations, some believe that traces of Nephilim energy still linger in certain places, vortex points, ancient temples, and forgotten landscapes where the veil between worlds remains thin. These are places where, it is said, one can still feel the pulse of that ancient age, where whispers of the giants drift on the wind and shadows seem to carry memories not their own. Others suggest that the story of the Nephilim is cyclical, that humanity, through its relentless pursuit of power and technological transcendence, is once again approaching the precipice that led to the giants' fall. As science delves into genetic manipulation, artificial intelligence, and the blending of man with machine, some see parallels to the ancient tale, a modern echo of the Watchers' descent and the birth of hybrid beings. Whether viewed as literal history, symbolic myth, or prophetic warning, the story of the Nephilim continues to resonate. It speaks to the eternal tension between aspiration and limitation, between the desire to ascend and the dangers that come when boundaries are ignored. And so, beneath the surface of everyday life, the legend sleeps, waiting for those who still listen to the quiet voices of the past. Beneath the surface of ancient myths and sacred texts lies a recurring pattern, a warning woven subtly into the narrative of the Nephilim. It is a pattern of cycles where forbidden knowledge leads to power, power leads to corruption, and corruption leads to destruction. The story of the Nephilim is not merely a tale of giants lost to time. It is a reflection of a greater cosmic law, one that governs the rise and fall of civilizations that dare to transgress the boundaries set by higher order. In every age where the divine mingled too closely with the mortal, legends speak of cataclysm. The flood that swept away the Nephilim was not the only such event whispered in humanity's collective memory. Cultures across the globe tell of great destructions, of lands swallowed by water, of skies darkened by fire, of worlds undone by the very knowledge and power that once elevated them. These stories suggest that the fate of the Nephilim was part of a larger rhythm, a resetting of the world when balance is lost. Some scholars and mystics believe that the Nephilim were not the first hybrid beings to walk the earth, nor would they be the last. They propose that before recorded history, other advanced beings, perhaps from celestial realms or distant stars, interacted with early forms of life, guiding or altering their development. The Nephilim, in this view, were simply the most recent manifestation of an ancient experiment, one that continually tests the limits of creation. This idea finds resonance in the mythologies of lost civilizations such as Atlantis, a realm described by Plato as a powerful empire that fell due to its moral decay and the misuse of divine knowledge. The Atlanteans, like the Nephilim, were said to possess extraordinary abilities and understanding of the cosmos. Their downfall mirrored the same theme, the danger of wielding power without wisdom, of reaching beyond what was meant for mortals. As these parallels emerge, it becomes clear that the story of the Nephilim extends far beyond the borders of biblical lands. It stretches into every corner of human mythos, connecting tales of giants, gods, and fallen civilizations into a single, haunting narrative. That there are forces in the universe which, when combined with human ambition, inevitably lead to ruin. Yet, amidst these warnings, there also exists a deeper mystery question of why such interactions occur at all. Why did the Watchers descend? Why did they choose to share forbidden knowledge and take human wives, knowing the consequences? Some interpretations suggest that it was not merely desire or rebellion, but a form of compassion, a longing to uplift humanity, to bridge the gap between the celestial and the earthly. If this was true, then the Nephilim were not born solely out of defiance, but also from a misunderstood attempt to elevate mankind. The tragedy, then, was not just in their fall, but in the failure of two realms to coexist without tipping into chaos. The Nephilim became symbols of what happens when higher knowledge meets an unprepared world, when enlightenment is forced rather than earned. This perspective casts the story in a different light, one where the Watchers are neither villains nor heroes, but beings caught in the complexities of cosmic law and human frailty. Their offspring, the Nephilim, were not monsters by nature, but victims of a fate they never chose. Beings too great for the world into which they were born, destined to be misunderstood and ultimately destroyed. In modern times, this interpretation offers a profound reflection on humanity's own journey. As we unlock secrets of the universe's splitting atoms, mapping genomes, exploring the stars, we too stand at the threshold of knowledge that could either elevate or destroy us. The tale of the Nephilim becomes more than ancient history. It becomes a mirror, showing us the potential dangers of our own unchecked advancement. And so, the giants of old continue to cast their long shadows across time, not in the form of towering figures striding across the land, but as ever-present reminders etched into the subconscious of humanity. They are the echoes of a time when the sky opened, when angels fell, and when the world was forever changed by the touch of beings who walked between heaven and earth. In the dim corridors of collective memory, the Nephilim stand as sentinels of a forgotten age, an age when the ordinary and the extraordinary intertwined beneath ancient skies. Though their physical forms have long since crumbled into dust, their story persists not only in ancient texts, but in the symbols, myths, and mysteries that continue to fascinate those who seek answers beyond the surface of accepted history. Symbols associated with the Nephilim and the Watchers have found their way into cultures across the world. The imagery of beings descending from the heavens, of winged figures watching over or interfering with human affairs, appears in countless forms. From Mesopotamian reliefs depicting godlike beings with eagle wings and human faces, to the angels and seraphim of later religious iconography, these motifs may be distant reflections of the same beings described in the earliest accounts. Even more intriguing is the presence of giant figures carved into hillsides, painted on cave walls, or etched into stone tablets. reminders that ancient people felt compelled to record the presence of beings far greater than themselves. These were not simple exaggerations or artistic flourishes. They were attempts to preserve the memory of encounters that shaped the destiny of entire civilizations. Some researchers believe that these depictions, scattered across continents, point to a global phenomenon, that the descent of the Watchers and the birth of the Nephilim was not confined to a single region, but part of a wider interaction between celestial forces and humanity at large. If true, this would explain why similar stories of giants and sky beings appear in cultures separated by oceans and thousands of miles. As these theories take shape, attention often turns to the megalithic structures left behind by ancient peoples' monuments that seem disproportionate to the capabilities of the civilizations credited with their construction. The sheer scale of places like Göbekli Tepe, Stonehenge, and the vast platform stones at Baalbek invites speculation that giants, or those with knowledge imparted by the Watchers, played a role in their creation. These sites, aligned with celestial bodies and constructed with mathematical precision, hint at a level of understanding far beyond what is typically attributed to early humans. Could it be that the Nephilim, with their inherited knowledge from their celestial fathers, contributed to these feats? Or perhaps they ruled over humans who, under their command, built these structures as temples, observatories, or even markers of ancient covenants between heaven and earth. The deeper one delves into these mysteries, the more apparent it becomes that the story of the Nephilim is not merely about giants of old. It is about the transmission of knowledge, forbidden, powerful, and transformative. The Watchers brought more than physical presence. They brought enlightenment mixed with peril, offering humanity tools that could either elevate or doom them. In esoteric traditions, this concept of hidden or forbidden knowledge is central. The idea that certain truths are veiled not because they are false, but because they are too potent for the unprepared Mindicoes, the fate of the Nephilim. They were born from secrets revealed too soon, from wisdom given without the foundation of spiritual maturity. Throughout history, those who sought such knowledge were often warned of its double-edged nature. Alchemists, mystics, and seekers spoke of the dangers of unlocking mysteries without the guidance of higher wisdom. In this context, the Nephilim represent more than a bygone race. They embody the eternal temptation to grasp at power beyond one's readiness, and the inevitable fall that follows. Yet not all interpretations are warnings. Some view the legacy of the Nephilim as a challenging reminder that humanity is destined to bridge the gap between the earthly and the divine, but must do so with care, humility, and reverence for the balance of creation. The Watchers failed not because they shared knowledge, but because they did so in defiance and desire, without aligning with the greater order. As humanity stands on the cusp of new frontiers in space exploration, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence, the ancient story of the Nephilim feels less like distant myth and more like a reflection of present choices. The same forces that once brought giants into the world may now manifest in different forms as we navigate the thin line between progress and peril. And so, beneath the modern world's bright lights and technological marvels, the shadow of the Nephilim lingers. A quiet presence reminding us that the past is never truly gone, and that the lessons of ancient giants still echo in the decisions we make today. As the winds of time carried humanity further from the days when giants walked the earth, the story of the Nephilim began to blur. Shifting from lived memory into legend, from legend into myth, and from myth into symbols, hidden within sacred texts and ancient teachings. Yet, for those who knew where to look, the traces remained faint but persistent, like footprints fossilized in stone, leading back to a time when the boundary between heaven and earth was not so firmly drawn. In the mystical traditions of Kabbalah, whispers of the Watchers and their offspring are preserved under layers of esoteric interpretation. These teachings speak of celestial hierarchies, of beings who descended into the material world and became ensnared by its density. Some interpretations suggest that the story of the Nephilim is not only about ancient history but also a metaphor for the soul's journey, a fall from higher realms into the physical plane, burdened by the weight of desire and the longing to return to the light. This spiritual lens casts the Watchers not merely as rebellious angels, but as representations of divine sparks that chose to experience creation more intimately, and in doing so, became entangled in the complexities of form and matter. The Nephilim, then, symbolized the result of this entanglement, powerful but conflicted beings caught between two worlds. Meanwhile, in the more literal traditions, the existence of giants continued to be acknowledged. Medieval scholars, drawing upon biblical references and classical sources, debated the nature of these beings. Chronicles from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East contained accounts of giant racism said to dwell in distant, unexplored lands. Others believed to have vanished beneath the earth or into remote mountains where few dared to tread. Explorers returning from far-off voyages often brought tales of encountering enormous bones or hearing local legends of ancient giants. Whether in the frozen north, the deserts of Africa, or the jungles of the Americas, the motif was the same: remnants of a forgotten age, when beings larger and stronger than men ruled vast territories before mysteriously disappearing. By the time the Renaissance sparked a revival of curiosity about the ancient world, these stories were often relegated to the realm of folklore. Yet, the fascination never truly died. Secret societies and occult orders, such as the Rosicrucians and later the Freemasons, wove references to ancient knowledge and perhaps even to the legacy of the Nephilim into their symbolic systems. They spoke of lost wisdom from a primordial age, of truths handed down from beings who once bridged the gap between gods and men. In parallel, the rise of archaeology in the 18th and 19th centuries unearthed ruins and artifacts that defied easy explanation. Massive stone structures, oversized tools, and mysterious burial sites reignited speculation about ancient giants. Reports circulated in newspapers about skeletons of extraordinary size being discovered in burial mounds across North America, Europe, and Asia. While many of these accounts were later dismissed or forgotten, they fueled the belief that the bones of the Nephilim might still lie buried beneath layers of earth and secrecy. Some claimed that institutions sought to suppress these findings to maintain the accepted narrative of human history. Whether through conspiracy or simple skepticism, the physical evidence of giants was said to vanish locked away in vaults or destroyed to prevent public upheaval. Yet, for those who believed, the absence of proof was not proof of absence. It was merely a sign that the truth was being carefully guarded. As the modern age unfolded, the story of the Nephilim found new expression through literature, art, and eventually film. The giants of old became characters in epic fantasies, symbols of ancient power, and metaphors for the consequences of human overreach. Yet, beneath these creative interpretations, the core questions remained unanswered. Who were the Nephilim truly? Were they merely myths born of fear and imagination, or were they echoes of a forgotten chapter in humanity's story, one too profound, too unsettling to fully comprehend. The more one explored these questions, the more apparent it became that the Nephilim were more than just figures of the past. They were keys to understanding the recurring patterns of human civilization, the rise and fall, the temptation of forbidden knowledge, and the thin line between enlightenment and destruction. And so, while the giants themselves may have vanished from sight, their story continues to rise like mist from the ancient ground, a quiet reminder that the past is never truly buried. As the modern world advanced into an era of reason and scientific discovery, the legends of the Nephilim seemed destined to be confined to the pages of ancient texts and the fading echoes of folklore. Yet, despite the growing dominance of materialist thought, the fascination with giants and celestial beings persisted, quietly surviving beneath the surface of mainstream understanding, waiting for those willing to question the boundaries of accepted history. In the 20th century, with the rise of alternative archaeology and the exploration of ancient mysteries, the story of the Nephilim experienced a resurgence. Researchers began to re-examine old accounts, ancient structures, and unexplained artifacts through a different lens zone that allowed for the possibility that humanity's distant past was far stranger and far more complex than conventional narratives suggested. Books and theories emerged proposing that the Nephilim were not mere myth, but evidence of an ancient interaction between humanity and otherworldly beings. Some suggested that these beings were extraterrestrial in origin visitors from distant star systems who, mistaken for gods, descended to Earth and altered the course of human evolution. The Watchers, in this view, were advanced entities whose technology and knowledge were perceived as divine by early humans. This interpretation found fertile ground in the growing field of ancient astronaut theory. Proponents pointed to texts like the Book of Enoch, Sumerian tablets, and global myths of sky gods descending in fiery chariots or shining vessels. They argued that the Nephilim were hybrids, not only between celestial and earthly beings in a spiritual sense, but also in a literal genetic experiment conducted by visitors from the stars. Such ideas, while controversial, captured the imagination of a world increasingly aware of its place in a vast and mysterious universe. The notion that giants once roamed the earth as a result of these interactions bridged the gap between ancient myth and modern curiosity about extraterrestrial life. At the same time, new discoveries continued to fuel speculation. Unexplained giant skeletons, oversized weapons, and megalithic sites defying human capabilities raised questions that mainstream archaeology struggled to answer. Why did so many ancient cultures build structures that seemed designed for beings of enormous stature? Why were there legends across continents of giants being defeated, driven away, or buried beneath mountains and seas? Some explorers turned their attention to the hidden places of the world, deep caves, remote mountain ranges, and subterranean chambers rumored to house the remnants of ancient beings. Tales persisted of secret tunnels beneath the earth, where the last of the Nephilim or their descendants retreated after their dominance was broken. These stories spoke of slumbering giants, waiting for a time foretold in prophecy when they might rise again. Prophecies from various traditions hinted at such a return, a period when the old powers would reawaken, when the Watchers' influence would once more touch the earth. Whether seen as a literal re-emergence or as a metaphor for humanity repeating the mistakes of the past, these warnings carried a sense of inevitability that the cycle begun in ancient days was far from over. In parallel, genetic research unveiled new mysteries about humanity itself. As scientists mapped the human genome, questions arose about anomalies and unexplained segments of DNA, so-called junk DNA, that some speculated could be remnants of ancient tampering. While mainstream science dismissed such notions, those familiar with the story of the Nephilim wondered if traces of celestial lineage still lingered within modern humans, dormant but present. This idea that humanity carries within it the legacy of the Watchers offered a profound reflection on human potential and peril. It suggested that the same spark which led to the rise of giants could manifest in different forms today, not through towering stature, but through intellectual, technological, and spiritual advancements that echo the forbidden knowledge once given by celestial beings. And so, as humanity stood at the threshold of unlocking secrets once thought divine, mastering genetics, exploring space, and manipulating the fabric of life itself, the ancient story of the Nephilim returned with renewed relevance. It was no longer just a tale of giants. It was a cautionary reflection on the choices that define civilizations. The Nephilim, whether viewed as historical beings, mythic archetypes, or symbols of cosmic interaction, continued to whisper through the ages, reminding humanity that the line between ascension and downfall is thinner than it seems. As the echoes of the Nephilim's story stretched into the modern consciousness, a deeper understanding began to emerge, one that transcended the literal tales of giants and reached into the core of human identity. The Nephilim were no longer seen solely as ancient beings of immense size and strength, but as symbols of a forgotten relationship between humanity and the cosmos. A time when the veil between worlds was thin, and knowledge flowed freely, though not without consequence. In many ways, the fascination with the Nephilim reflects an innate human longing to reconnect with something greater, a sense that our origins are tied not just to the earth beneath our feet, but to the stars above. The story of celestial beings descending to interact with humanity speaks to a deep-rooted belief that we are part of a much larger, interconnected universe, and that somewhere in the distant past, that connection was more tangible. Ancient cultures seem to recognize this truth. Their myths, rituals, and monuments were often aligned with celestial movements, as if to honor or maintain a dialogue with the heavens. The Watchers and their offspring, the Nephilim, were perhaps the most striking manifestation of this dialogue, physical embodiments of what happens when the celestial directly touches the terrestrial. But as the legends remind us, such contact came at a cost. The Nephilim's existence was marked by imbalance, by the dangers of merging realms that were meant to remain distinct, at least until humanity was ready to bridge that gap through natural evolution and spiritual growth. The premature gift of knowledge, without the wisdom to wield it, led to corruption, violence, and ultimately, a cleansing reset. This theme of knowledge granted before its time echoes through countless stories beyond that of the Nephilim. The tale of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind, carries a similar warning. The fire, like the Watcher's knowledge, was both a blessing and a burden, a spark of advancement that came with unforeseen consequences. In both cases, the message is clear. There is a delicate balance between enlightenment and destruction. Today, as humanity stands at the precipice of breakthroughs that could redefine existence, these ancient stories resonate more than ever. The same questions that surrounded the Watchers and the Nephilim now face modern civilization. How much knowledge is too much? Can power be wielded responsibly, without corrupting the soul? Are we repeating the same patterns that led to the downfall of giants? Some believe that these patterns are embedded within the very fabric of reality, that civilizations rise, reach beyond their limits, and fall, only to be reborn anew. The story of the Nephilim, then, is not a singular event lost to time, but a chapter in a recurring saga of cosmic interaction and human aspiration. In this view, the Nephilim were both a product and a warning, beings that embodied humanity's potential when touched by the divine, but also a testament to the dangers of untempered ambition. Their downfall serves as a reminder that true ascension requires more than power or knowledge. It demands harmony, humility, and alignment with the greater order of creation. As researchers, mystics, and thinkers continue to explore these ideas, they often return to the ancient texts, seeking wisdom hidden within the lines. The stories of the Watchers, the Flood, and the Giants are not merely tales of the past, but blueprints for understanding the cyclical nature of human progress and the spiritual responsibilities that come with it. For those attuned to these deeper meanings, the Nephilim are not relics of a bygone era, but ever-present symbols, reminders that the choices made in the pursuit of greatness carry echoes that can shape or shatter worlds. They stand as silent guardians of a lesson humanity must learn if it wishes to avoid the fate of those who came before. And so, beneath the noise of modern life, beneath the rush toward technological dominance and the quest for limitless knowledge, the ancient story continues to hum softly, a timeless melody that calls us to remember the giants, not for their might, but for the truths they left behind. As the veil of time continues to thin in the minds of those who seek the forgotten truths, the legacy of the Nephilim stretches far beyond the confines of ancient scripture or scattered myth. Their presence is etched not only in stone and story, but also in the human subconscious, a lingering imprint of an era when gods and mortals shared the same ground, and when giants stood as monuments to both divine potential and cosmic transgression. Throughout the ages, certain bloodlines have been whispered about, families and dynasties rumored to carry within them the remnants of celestial heritage. From the royal houses of antiquity to the noble lines of medieval Europe, stories persisted of rulers who claimed descent from beings not entirely of this world. Whether through divine right, sacred ancestry, or secret knowledge passed through generations, these bloodlines were often shrouded in mystery. Their origins traced back to a time before the flood, when the Nephilim walked the earth. This idea that fragments of the Watcher's legacy continue through human lineages has fascinated scholars and mystics alike. Some believe that those who carry this ancient spark possess heightened intuition, a natural affinity for leadership, or an unspoken connection to the mysteries of existence. Others warn that such inheritance is a double-edged sword, carrying with it the same potential for imbalance that led to the downfall of the giants. In esoteric traditions, these bloodlines are sometimes linked to the concept of the Grail, not merely a physical cup, but a symbol of divine essence preserved through the ages. The quest for the Grail, in this interpretation, becomes a search for the lost connection to celestial origins, a journey to reclaim the harmony that was broken when the Watchers descended and the Nephilim were born. Legends speak of hidden knowledge safeguarded by these lineages, secrets concerning the true nature of humanity's past, the powers once wielded by the giants, and the path to restoring balance between the earthly and the divine. Some suggest that this knowledge is encoded in ancient symbols, sacred geometry, and forgotten languages waiting for those with the insight to decipher them. As the modern world grows increasingly disconnected from its spiritual roots, these remnants of the Nephilim story serve as quiet reminders that humanity's origins are far more mysterious than conventional history admits. The great monuments, the ancient texts, the recurring myths all point toward a forgotten covenant, a time when humanity was closer to the stars and yet perilously close to self-destruction. The Watchers, in their descent, introduced more than just physical offspring. They introduced a legacy of Longinga, yearning to transcend human limitations and reclaim a lost connection to the cosmos. This yearning manifests today in humanity's relentless pursuit of advancement, the desire to conquer space, to manipulate life itself, to unlock the secrets of consciousness and reality. But with each step forward, the shadow of the Nephilim looms as a silent warning. The giants were a testament to what happens when power arrives without wisdom, when knowledge is given rather than earned. Their story is not merely about the past, it is a guide for navigating the future. Some believe that the time is approaching when the ancient patterns will repeat. When humanity, standing at the crossroads of technological and spiritual evolution, will face the same choices that led to the rise and fall of the Nephilim. In this view, the Watcher's influence never truly ended. It sleeps within the collective human experience, waiting for the right or wrong moment to reawaken. Prophecies across cultures speak of a return, of days when giants, or beings like them, will once again be seen upon the earth. Whether this is to be understood literally or symbolically remains a matter of interpretation. Perhaps the giants will not return as towering figures of flesh and bone, but as forces, ideologies, technologies, or spiritual awakenings that echo the ancient story in new forms. And so, as humanity moves deeper into uncharted realms of discovery, the ancient whispers grow louder for those willing to listen. The Nephilim may be gone from sight, but their legacy is woven into the very fabric of what it means to be human, caught between earth and sky, ever reaching upward, but forever bound by the lessons of the past. In the quiet moments when the world forgets its modern distractions, the ancient echoes of the Nephilim still call out, not in thunderous footsteps or towering shadows, but in the subtle pull of forgotten truths lingering at the edge of human awareness. The giants may no longer roam the earth, but their story remains imprinted upon the landscapes they once dominated, and within the collective dreams of those who sense that history is deeper than it appears. Across the globe, countless megalithic sites stand as silent witnesses to an age when beings of extraordinary power and knowledge shaped the world. These structures, often dismissed as the work of primitive hands guided only by rudimentary tools, tell a different story to those who look beyond conventional explanations. Stones weighing hundreds of tons, aligned with celestial precision, carved with symbols whose meanings are long lost, all suggest a forgotten chapter where human effort alone was not enough to achieve such feats. Some believe that the Nephilim, with their immense strength and inherited wisdom from the Watchers, played a direct role in these constructions. Others suggest that even after their fall, the knowledge imparted by their celestial fathers continued to influence early civilizations, guiding humanity's first steps into architecture, astronomy, and sacred geometry. These monuments may not only be temples or tombs, but markers, coordinates in a global network designed to preserve the memory of a time when heaven and earth were intertwined. Legends from every continent speak of these giants as builders, rulers, and sometimes destroyers. In South America, the tales of Viracocha describe a race of giants who shaped the land before being cast down by divine forces. In the British Isles, stories of Gog and Magog recount the presence of ancient giants who once ruled the land. In Africa, The Chwezi legends tell of tall, powerful beings with abilities beyond those of ordinary men. These stories, separated by vast distances and cultures, share too many similarities to be easily dismissed. As modern explorers and researchers retrace these ancient paths, they often find that the more they uncover, the more questions arise. Why do so many ancient texts, carvings, and oral traditions point toward a forgotten race of giants? Why does mainstream history remain reluctant to address these persistent accounts? Some suggest that acknowledging the existence of the Nephilim would unravel the established narrative of human origins and development, forcing a reevaluation of where we come from and who else once walked beside us. The possibility that the Nephilim were part of a broader cosmic order, perhaps linked to otherworldly beings or higher dimensions, adds further layers to the mystery. Were the Watchers acting alone in their descent, or were they part of a larger system of celestial governance and experimentation? If so, what was the true purpose behind their interactions with humanity? Was it curiosity, rebellion, or a misunderstood mission to elevate human consciousness? These questions continue to inspire both wonder and caution. For while the legacy of the Nephilim hints at forgotten greatness, it also serves as a stark reminder of the consequences that follow when the natural order is disrupted. The giants were not merely victims of divine wrath, they were manifestations of imbalance, born from choices that defied the laws governing the harmony between realms. Yet, despite their tragic fate, the Nephilim left behind more than ruins and warnings. They left a trace of celestial potential woven into the human story. Some believe that within each person lies a dormant memory of that ancient connection, a subtle reminder that humanity was once touched by the divine, and that the quest to reconnect with that higher state continues even now. In this light, the story of the Nephilim is not one of fear, but of awareness. It challenges humanity to remember its place in the cosmos, not as masters seeking dominion over forbidden knowledge, but as custodians of a delicate balance between aspiration and humility. And so, as the stars continue to wheel above ancient stones and forgotten valleys, the presence of the Nephilim endures. Not in physical form, but in the timeless lessons they represent, echoes of giants who remind us that the bridge between earth and heaven is both a path of wonder and a road fraught with peril. As night falls over, forgotten ruins and the stars emerge to cast their silent glow upon the earth, the story of the Nephilim drifts once more into the minds of those who wonder what truths lie hidden beneath the sands of time. The giants are gone, their bones buried or vanished, but their influence lingers in ways both subtle and profound, shaping the myths we tell, the mysteries we seek, and the boundaries we dare to push. Throughout history, there have been moments when whispers of the Nephilim resurfaced not as distant legends, but as encounters too strange to be ignored. Travelers spoke of discovering enormous footprints fossilized in stone. Villages passed down tales of ancient battles where heroes faced off against towering foes. And in remote regions, stories emerged of hidden valleys or mountain caves where giants were said to sleep, awaiting a time foretold by prophecy. These accounts, scattered across centuries, were often dismissed by scholars as mere folklore. Yet they persisted, as if the earth itself refused to let the memory of the Nephilim fade completely. In some traditions, the giants were not seen as entirely evil, but as guardians of ancient knowledge beings who, despite their origins in celestial defiance, held secrets about the world that had been lost to mankind. There are stories of sacred texts hidden beneath monolithic temples, scrolls said to contain wisdom passed down from the days when the Watchers walked the earth. Some believe that within these hidden writings lie explanations for the mysteries of existence, how the cosmos is woven together, how energy flows through creation, and how humanity might one day ascend without repeating the mistakes of the past. This idea that the Nephilim were not only beings of brute strength but also keepers of profound knowledge adds a layer of complexity to their story. It suggests that their downfall was not solely due to their size or hunger, but because they embodied a mixture of power and understanding that humanity was not yet ready to receive. The flood may have washed away their physical forms, but perhaps the knowledge they carried was preserved in ways unseen. Some esoteric traditions speak of a hidden library, a repository of ancient wisdom guarded by the remnants of the Nephilim legacy. Whether located beneath the sands of Egypt, within the mountains of Tibet, or deep in the jungles of South America, these mythical archives are said to contain records from before the flood, a time when humanity and celestial beings shared the earth in uneasy harmony. Modern seekers, inspired by these legends, continue to search for such places. Explorers venture into remote regions, guided by old maps, cryptic symbols, and the faint hope that they might uncover a fragment of this lost world. While many return empty-handed, others report strange finding structures, misaligned with known history, artifacts that defy classification, and energies that seem to hum with a presence beyond explanation. At the same time, advancements in technology have allowed researchers to peer beneath the surface of the Earth using satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar. These tools have revealed anomalies, vast underground chambers, forgotten cities, and unexplained formations that hint at civilizations far older than previously believed. Could these be remnants of the world the Nephilim once ruled? Or perhaps sanctuaries where their knowledge was hidden away before the great deluge swept across the land? As these discoveries accumulate, they challenge the linear view of human history. The possibility that advanced beings, whether giants, gods, or visitors from the star sons, interacted with early humanity forces a reconsideration of where we come from and what legacies we have inherited. Yet, amidst this search for physical evidence, there are those who suggest that the true remnants of the Nephilim lie not in stones or scrolls, but within the human spirit. That the longing to reach beyond the mundane, to seek higher truths and hidden wisdom, is itself a reflection of the ancient connection between mankind and the celestial. In this sense, the Nephilim live on not as towering figures, but as symbols of humanity's eternal quest to bridge the gap between the earthly and the divine. To remember a time when the stars were closer, and to walk that path again but wisely, and with reverence for the delicate balance that governs all creation. As the winds of curiosity sweep across ancient landscapes, the silent monuments left behind by forgotten hands continue to stir questions about the world that existed before the flood. A world shaped by the presence of the Nephilim. Though time has eroded the details, the essence of their story lingers on imprint left not only in stone but within the very fabric of human memory. In every civilization, there seems to exist a primal awareness of beings greater than Mengians who once held dominion over the earth. These memories, passed down through generations, became woven into myths of titans, ogres, and mighty warriors. While the names changed, the core theme remained. A race born of divine and mortal union, whose power ultimately led to their downfall. Some traditions, however, speak not only of the fall of the Nephilim, but of their survival hidden in remote parts of the world, far from the eyes of men. Tales from the Himalayas describe encounters with towering beings, sometimes mistaken for deities or nature spirits. In the forests of Siberia and the caves of the Caucasus, legends tell of ancient giants retreating deep underground, dwelling in vast subterranean realms untouched by time. This idea that the Nephilim or their descendants might have found refuge beneath the earth has fueled countless theories about hidden worlds and lost civilizations. Stories of Agartha, Shambhala, and other mythical inner earth domains suggest that deep within the planet lie cities of advanced beings, perhaps preserving the last vestiges of knowledge from a pre-flood era. While mainstream science dismisses these ideas as mere fantasy, the persistence of such legends across cultures invites deeper reflection. Could it be that the Nephilim, or those influenced by their legacy, withdrew from the surface world as humanity rebuilt itself after the Great Cataclysm? If so, what wisdom or dangers might still lie hidden in those shadowed realms? Beyond the physical possibilities, some believe that the Nephilim continue to exist in a different form, not as flesh and blood, but as spiritual entities. The Book of Enoch describes how, upon their death, the spirits of the Nephilim became restless and malevolent-tunable to ascend to the heavens, yet too powerful to fade entirely. These disembodied spirits, according to ancient belief, became what later traditions would call demons, unseen forces that wander the earth, seeking to influence or possess the living. This notion casts a darker shadow over the legacy of the giants. While their physical might was washed away by the flood, their spiritual presence endured, whispering into the minds of men, reigniting the same ambitions and desires that led to their creation. In this view, the influence of the Nephilim never truly ended. It simply shifted from the visible to the invisible, from towering figures to subtle manipulations of thought and will. Some esoteric teachings warn that these ancient spirits still seek to reclaim their former dominion, working through human agents who are susceptible to their influence. Secret societies, occult orders, and powerful individuals are sometimes rumored to be guided knowingly or unknowingly by remnants of this primordial force. The resurgence of forbidden knowledge, the push toward transhumanism, and the pursuit of godlike power through technology are seen by some as modern manifestations of the ancient Nephilim spirit. Yet, not all interpretations are so ominous. Others suggest that the Nephilim represent a misunderstood chapter of human evolution, a time when humanity was offered a glimpse of its potential, even if it came prematurely. The challenge now, they argue, is to integrate that ancient knowledge with the wisdom gained through millennia of experience, to rise without falling, to ascend without repeating the errors of the past. As humanity stands at the threshold of unlocking mysteries once reserved for the divine, the echoes of the Nephilim story serve as both a guide and a warning. The giants remind us that power without balance leads to ruin, but they also hint at the incredible heights that can be reached when knowledge is pursued with reverence and understanding. And so, beneath the modern world's veneer of progress, the ancient tale of the Nephilim continues to stir, a quiet presence, urging humanity to remember where it came from and to choose wisely the path ahead. As dawn breaks over the forgotten landscapes where legends were born, the lingering presence of the Nephilim continues to weave itself through the undercurrents of human thought. Though they vanished from sight, their story remains etched into the soul of civilization, appearing in unexpected places, in symbols carved into ancient stones, in tales passed quietly through generations, and in the unspoken questions that rise when we gaze upon the mysteries left behind by our ancestors. The giants of old may no longer cast their shadows across the earth, but their influence endures in the form of archetypes, recurring figures in mythology, dreams, and collective imagination. Carl Jung, the famed psychologist, spoke of such archetypes as universal patterns embedded within the human psyche. The Nephilim, with their blend of divine origin and mortal flaw, fit seamlessly into this concept, representing humanity's eternal struggle between aspiration and limitation, between the celestial and the earthly. These archetypes manifest in countless stories across cultures. Heroes who battle giants are not merely fighting physical foes, they are confronting the overwhelming forces of chaos, pride, and unchecked power. The slaying of the giant becomes a metaphor for restoring balance, for overcoming the parts of ourselves that reach too far, too fast, without understanding the consequences. But while many tales focus on the defeat of giants, others hint at a more nuanced relationship. In some legends, giants are depicted as wise elders, protectors of ancient secrets, or builders of civilizations. This duality, where the Nephilim are seen both as threats and as holders of forgotten wisdom, reflects humanity's complex relationship with power and knowledge. It suggests that the giants were not inherently evil, but became dangerous when their gifts were misaligned with the natural order. This interpretation invites a reconsideration of the Watcher's role as well. Were they purely rebellious beings, or were they acting according to a higher plan that remains beyond human understanding? Some ancient traditions suggest that what appeared as defiance was, in fact, part of a cosmic cycle, necessary disruption to spark growth and evolution, even if it brought suffering in its wake. Such ideas resonate with modern spiritual philosophies that view challenges and even catastrophes as catalysts for transformation. The descent of the Watchers, the birth of the Nephilim, and the eventual flood can be seen not only as punishment, but as a profound lesson encoded into the fabric of human history, lesson about balance, responsibility, and the sacred nature of knowledge. In the quiet corners of the world, there are still those who seek to uncover the remnants of this ancient wisdom. From scholars deciphering ancient texts to mystics meditating in forgotten temples, the quest to understand the true legacy of the Nephilim continues. These seekers believe that hidden within the myths are keys not only to the past, but to humanity's future. Some point to the alignment of ancient sites with celestial bodies, suggesting that the Watchers imparted a cosmic map guidelines for navigating both the physical and spiritual realms. Others study the recurring symbols found in disparate cultures, believing they encode a universal language of truth passed down from the days when giants walked among men. Yet, even as these mysteries are explored, a quiet caution persists. The story of the Nephilim reminds us that knowledge alone is not enough. Without wisdom, compassion, and alignment with the greater harmony of creation, even the most profound truths can lead to ruin. The giants were beings of immense potential, but their fall was a consequence of imbalance, of power wielded without regard for the delicate threads that bind the cosmos together. And so, as humanity continues its journey toward greater understanding, probing the depths of space, unlocking the secrets of life, and reaching for heights once thought unattainable, the ancient whispers grow ever more relevant. The Nephilim may be gone, but their story lives on as a silent companion to human progress. A reminder that the path to greatness is not marked by power alone, but by the wisdom to know when to reach and when to remain grounded. Beneath the stars that once watched the rise and fall of giants, the world turns quietly, holding within it the memories of an age when the heavens touched the earth, and the lessons of that union still wait to be fully understood. In the stillness between ancient memory and modern discovery, the story of the Nephilim continues to unfold, not as a tale trapped in the past, but as a living narrative that whispers through forgotten ruins, sacred texts, and the quiet spaces where human curiosity dares to wander. The giants may have fallen long ago, but their presence lingers in ways both seen and unseen, shaping the questions we ask about who we are, where we come from, and what forces once walked beside us. As the centuries passed and the floodwaters of history washed over the details, many began to view the Nephilim as mere myth figments of imagination, crafted to explain the unexplainable. Yet, there were always those who believed otherwise. Hidden among scholars, mystics, and seekers were individuals who understood that beneath the veil of legend lay fragments of truth, truths too profound and perhaps too unsettling for the world to accept openly. These keepers of forgotten knowledge guarded stories of how the Watcher's influence extended far beyond the birth of giants. The celestial beings who descended upon Mount Hermon brought with them more than just the seeds of the Nephilim. They brought knowledge of the stars, the secrets of the earth, and the hidden laws that govern existence. Metallurgy, weaponry, enchantments, and the mysteries of the heavens were given freely. But without the wisdom to temper them, humanity was thrust into a spiral of advancement without understanding. This sudden leap in knowledge explains much of what puzzles modern historians: the abrupt emergence of complex civilizations, the construction of impossible architecture, and the deep, intrinsic connection many ancient cultures had with celestial movements. It was as if humanity had been handed a torch it neither asked for nor knew how to carry. Yet, for all the chaos that followed, there remained a thread of sacred understanding and awareness that certain knowledge was meant to be approached with reverence, not ambition. In the aftermath of the Nephilim's fall, this awareness became embedded in the mystery schools of Egypt, the teachings of the Druids, the wisdom of the sages in the East. These traditions sought to preserve what was good and pure from the age of giants, while warning against the excesses that led to their downfall. Some believe that the great spiritual teachers throughout history, figures who spoke of balance, harmony, and the middle path, were, in part, responding to the lingering shadow of the Nephilim legacy. Their teachings echoed a simple but profound truth: that power without alignment to the divine order leads only to ruin. Whether consciously or not, these teachers carried forward the lessons learned in a world once dominated by beings who had forgotten this balance. Meanwhile, the physical remnants of that age continued to call out to those who could hear them. The massive stones of ancient temples, the unexplained artifacts buried deep beneath layers of earth, and the recurring motifs of giants and celestial beings served as silent witnesses to a history far richer and stranger than what is taught in books. In recent decades, as technology has allowed humanity to peer deeper into the past, new discoveries have reignited interest in these mysteries. Satellite images revealing lost cities, sonar scans uncovering submerged structures, and genetic studies hinting at unknown ancestries have all contributed to a growing sense that the official story of human history is incomplete. Some researchers suggest that traces of the Nephilim can still be found not only in ancient ruins, but within the human genome itself. Legends of extraordinary individuals, those possessing unusual strength, intellect, or spiritual insight, are sometimes linked to the idea that fragments of the Watcher's legacy persist in subtle ways. These individuals, it is said, carry a spark from that forgotten age, a reminder of humanity's potential when touched by the divine. Yet, with this potential comes responsibility. The story of the Nephilim is not a celebration of greatness, it is a cautionary tale about the cost of misused power and forgotten purpose. It reminds us that true strength lies not in dominion, but in understanding, not in reaching beyond the stars recklessly, but in walking the path between earth and heaven with humility. And so, beneath the surface of modern life, the ancient narrative continues to unfold, quietly guiding those who seek the deeper truths and reminding humanity that the giants of old may be gone, but their story is far from over. As the quiet hum of history echoes through the ages, the presence of the Nephilim seems to rise and fall like the tide, sometimes hidden beneath layers of myth and skepticism, and at other times breaking through into human awareness with renewed force. It is as if their story refuses to be forgotten, resurfacing whenever humanity stands at a crossroads, whenever we begin to tread paths that mirror the choices made in that ancient, shadowed time. In recent years, with the growth of global communication and access to ancient knowledge, the mysteries surrounding the Nephilim have captured the imagination of a new generation. Researchers, authors, and explorers have begun connecting dots across continents, finding uncanny similarities between cultures that, according to conventional history, should have had no contact with one another. From the towering statues of Easter Island to the colossal stone heads of the Olmec civilization, from the myths of sky beings in Aboriginal Australia to the legends of star ancestors among Native American tribes, a common thread weaves through them all. It is the story of beings descending from the heavens, of giants who walked the earth, and of knowledge bestowed or imposed upon early humanity. These parallels suggest that the tale of the Nephilim is not confined to a single tradition, but is instead a global memory, fragmented and reframed by different cultures, yet pointing to the same extraordinary events. Whether called gods, titans, watchers, or giants, the essence of these beings remains consistent, powerful, otherworldly, and ultimately tragic. For those who delve deeper, the question arises, why did the Watchers descend in the first place? Was it truly rebellion and desire that drove them? Or was there a higher purpose obscured by time and interpretation? Some esoteric teachings propose that the descent of the Watchers was part of a grand cosmic designant experiment in blending celestial essence with earthly form, intended to accelerate human evolution. If this is true, then the Nephilim were never meant to be monsters or tyrants. They were intended as bridges, living connections between heaven and earth, embodying both divine potential and human experience. Their failure, then, becomes not just a story of punishment, but a reflection of how delicate such a balance truly is. This perspective casts the flood in a different light, not merely as an act of wrath, but as a necessary cleansing to restore harmony after an experiment that spiraled beyond control. Yet, it also suggests that the legacy of the Nephilim was never entirely erased, that the knowledge, the spark of potential they represented, was preserved in subtle ways, waiting for a time when humanity could approach it with greater wisdom. Modern spiritual thinkers often speak of a coming age of awakening, a period when humanity will remember its true origins and reclaim its place within a cosmic community. In this vision, the mistakes of the past embodied by the fall of the Nephilim serve as guideposts, ensuring that the next encounter between the earthly and the divine unfolds not in chaos, but in harmony. There are even those who believe that signs of this awakening are already present. The resurgence of interest in ancient wisdom, the global movement toward consciousness exploration, and the blending of science with spiritual inquiry all point toward a shift, a slow but steady reconnection with the truths that were once lost beneath floodwaters and forgotten tongues. Yet, alongside this hope, the caution of the Nephilim story remains ever relevant. As humanity gains access to technologies that can alter life itself, extend consciousness, and explore realms beyond the physical, we face the same temptations that once led to the giants' downfall. The pursuit of power for its own sake, the desire to transcend natural limits without understanding the consequences. These are the echoes of choices made long ago. And so, the ancient narrative continues to serve as both inspiration and warning, a reminder that the path to higher knowledge must be walked with care, and that true greatness lies not in dominion over creation, but in alignment with its deeper rhythms. Beneath the vast sky that once witnessed the rise of giants, humanity now stands once more at the threshold of discovery, carrying within it the lessons of a forgotten age and the quiet hope that this time the balance can be preserved. As the centuries unfold like pages in a forgotten book, the story of the Nephilim lingers not only in the ancient stones and sacred texts, but within the silent spaces where human curiosity meets the unknown. The tale of giants, born from the union of celestial beings and mortals, is more than a distant myth. It is a reflection of humanity's ongoing journey between earth and sky, between limitation and transcendence. Throughout time, philosophers and mystics have pondered the deeper meaning of the Nephilim narrative. Beyond the surface details of towering figures and divine punishment lies a profound allegorion that speaks to the human condition itself. The Watcher's descent symbolizes the eternal pull between higher realms and earthly desires, while the Nephilim represent the consequences of merging those realms without harmony or foresight. This allegorical lens reveals that the giant's story is not just about beings who lived long ago, but about choices that every generation faces, the temptation to reach beyond natural limits, to grasp at knowledge and power without understanding, is a theme that repeats throughout history. The Nephilim, in this sense, become mirrors showing us what happens when the balance between aspiration and responsibility is lost. Ancient mystery schools understood this balance well. From Egypt to Greece, from India to Mesoamerica, initiates were taught that true wisdom could only be attained through inner transformation, not merely by acquiring knowledge, but by aligning the soul with the greater order of the cosmos. These teachings, perhaps influenced by the remnants of the Watcher's legacy, emphasized that enlightenment was a path of discipline, humility, and reverence. In these sacred traditions, stories of giants and fallen angels were preserved not just as historical accounts, but as cautionary tales woven into spiritual instruction. The message was, clear power divorced from virtue leads to ruin, while true ascension comes from harmony with the divine will. The Nephilim, once beings of immense potential, fell because they embodied power without balance, a lesson humanity was never meant to forget. Yet, despite these warnings, the allure of forbidden knowledge has never faded. In every age, there have been those who sought to reclaim the lost secrets of the Watchers, to uncover the ancient technologies, the hidden sciences, and the pathways to transcendent abilities. Some pursued these mysteries with noble intent, hoping to uplift humanity. Others, however, followed the same path of ambition that led to the giants' fall. Legends speak of artifacts from the age of the Nephilim, objects imbued with celestial power, hidden away to prevent their misuse. These relics, sometimes referred to as keys or seals, were said to unlock gateways to higher realms or to awaken latent abilities within those deemed worthy. Stories of such artifacts appear in various forms: crystals of immense energy, tablets inscribed with divine language, or weapons forged with knowledge lost to time. Whether these tales are literal or symbolic, they point to a recurring belief that remnants of the Nephilim age still exist, waiting to be discovered, or perhaps waiting for humanity to prove it has matured enough to wield them wisely. The guardians of these secrets, according to some traditions, are not merely human but include spiritual beings tasked with ensuring that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. As modern explorers, scientists, and visionaries push the boundaries of what is possible, decoding the human genome, exploring quantum realities, and reaching into the stars, the ancient story grows ever more relevant. The line between myth and reality blurs, and the choices faced by the Watchers and their offspring begin to echo in the decisions of today. Will humanity, armed with unprecedented knowledge and capability, fall into the same patterns that led to the Nephilim's destruction? Or will it heed the lessons embedded in that ancient talakuzing, a path of balance, wisdom, and alignment with the greater harmony of creation? The answer lies not in the past, but in the unfolding present, where the silent voices of giants remind us that true greatness is not measured by power alone, but by the grace with which it is held. Beneath the endless sky, under the watchful gaze of stars that have seen civilizations rise and fall, the story continues, quiet, patient, and waiting for those who understand that the most important lessons are often hidden within the echoes of forgotten giants. In the hush of ancient forests and beneath the shadows of towering mountains, the whispers of the Nephilim still drift through the air. Faint traces of a forgotten age, when giants shaped the world, and the boundary between the divine and the mortal was thin and fragile. Though the world has changed beyond recognition since those days, the memory of the Nephilim lingers not just in stories, but in the very landscapes they once roamed. Many believe that the earth itself remembers, that certain places retain the energy of what transpired there long ago. Sacred sites, often built upon older foundations, are thought to sit atop ancient power centers, places where the Watchers once descended, or where the Nephilim walked in their prime. These locations, marked by megalithic stones or mysterious ruins, continue to draw those who feel an unspoken connection to the past. Across Europe, stone circles like Stonehenge and Avebury stand as silent sentinels, their true purpose obscured by time. In the Americas, the vast earthworks of the Serpent Mound and the towering pyramids of Teotihuacan hint at a knowledge of cosmic alignment and earth energies that surpasses what is commonly understood. Could it be that these sites were chosen or even constructed under the guidance of beings who possessed knowledge inherited from the Watchers? Legends often describe the Nephilim not only as giants of physical might, but also as beings attuned to the forces of nature and the cosmos. Their size, while imposing, was only part of their power. It is said that they understood the ley lines of the earth, the patterns of energy that flow beneath the surface, connecting sacred points across continents. This knowledge, passed down or discovered anew, became the foundation for many of the world's ancient monuments. Some suggest that these structures served as more than temples or observatories. They were instruments designed to harmonize earthly energies with celestial rhythms. In this way, the Nephilim may have sought to stabilize the imbalance their existence created, using the very fabric of the earth to maintain a fragile connection between two realms that were never meant to fully merge. As centuries passed and the giants faded into legend, much of this knowledge was lost or deliberately hidden. The rise of new civilizations, eager to distance themselves from the chaos of the past, often reinterpreted or buried the remnants of the Nephilim era. Yet, fragments survived in symbols, carved into stone, in myths whispered by elders, and in the intuitive understanding of those sensitive to the unseen forces that still pulse beneath ancient grounds. In modern times, researchers and adventurers continue to seek out these forgotten places, believing that they hold keys to unlocking not only the mysteries of the past, but also insights into humanity's future. Some report strange phenomena at these sites' compasses spinning wildly, unexplained lights, sensations of timelessness as if the veil between worlds remains thinner where the giants once stood. There are even theories that these ancient power centers could be reactivated, that when aligned with certain celestial events, they might open gateways or awaken dormant energies linked to the age of the Watchers. While such ideas are often relegated to the realm of speculation, they reflect a deeper truth that humanity has always sensed a connection to something greater, something ancient, waiting to be remembered. As humanity advances technologically, there is a growing recognition that true progress also requires reconnection with these forgotten aspects of existence. The story of the Nephilim serves as a reminder that knowledge divorced from wisdom leads to imbalance, but when harmonized, it offers the potential for profound awakening. And so, scattered across the world, beneath layers of soil and centuries of forgetfulness, the legacy of the Nephilim waits etched into stone, woven into the earth's energy, and carried in the hearts of those who still listen to the quiet songs of ancient giants. The path forward may yet lead humanity to rediscover what was lost, not to repeat the past, but to fulfill the promise that once flickered in a time when heaven touched earth and giants walked between the stars and the soil. As the stars continue their eternal dance across the night sky, the ancient story of the Nephilim stretches quietly across time, a thread connecting humanity's distant past with the unfolding present. Though the giants have long since vanished from the physical world, their presence endures in subtle ways woven into the myths, mysteries, and forgotten knowledge that still calls to those who seek to understand the deeper layers of existence. Among the many enigmas left behind by the Nephilim age are the questions surrounding humanity's own origins. While traditional history offers a linear path of development, there are anomalies, gaps, and leaps in human evolution and civilization that defy simple explanations. Some researchers propose that these sudden advancements were not merely the result of chance, but the echoes of knowledge once imparted by celestial beings. Knowledge that lingered even after the Watchers were cast down and the Nephilim were swept away by the Great Flood. The sudden appearance of agriculture, metallurgy, advanced mathematics, and astronomy in early civilizations hints at an intervention and external influence that accelerated human progress far beyond what would be expected for primitive societies. Could it be that the Watchers, in their descent, planted seeds of knowledge that would continue to bloom long after their fall? If so, humanity's greatest achievements may carry within them traces of a forgotten partnership between earth and sky. This idea has led some to speculate that the true legacy of the Nephilim is not merely in the ruins they left behind, but in the very fabric of human consciousness. The blending of celestial and mortal essence may have created more than giants of flesh and bonite, may have sparked a hidden potential within humanity itself, a dormant capacity for higher awareness, creativity, and spiritual connection. In this light, the Nephilim story becomes more than a cautionary tale. It transforms into a key for understanding humanity's place within a greater cosmic order. The fall of the giants serves as a reminder of the dangers of imbalance, but their existence also points to the possibility that mankind is destined for more than a purely earthly journey. Throughout history, there have been individuals who seem to embody this potential: visionaries, prophets, inventors, and sages who tapped into a well of inspiration beyond the ordinary. Some traditions suggest that these figures carried within them a faint echo of the ancient union between the divine and the human, not in the form of physical gigantism, but in the expansion of mind and spirit. These individuals often spoke of receiving knowledge from higher sources, visions, dreams, or encounters with beings of light. Whether interpreted as divine guidance, ancestral memory, or the influence of the Watcher's lingering presence, such experiences hint at an ongoing dialogue between humanity and the celestial realms. In modern times, this dialogue has taken new forms. The rise of interest in meditation, altered states of consciousness, and the exploration of metaphysical realities reflects a growing awareness that the material world is only part of the story. As people seek to reconnect with the forgotten wisdom of the ancients, they often find themselves drawn to the same themes that defined the Nephilim-era: questions of origin, purpose, and the boundaries between mortal and divine. Yet the story also warns that awakening such potential comes with responsibility. The Watchers gave humanity knowledge without guidance, and the result was chaos. Today, as humanity gains tools that allow it to manipulate life, matter, and even consciousness itself, the echoes of that ancient mistake grow louder. The choice remains the same as it was in the days before the flood: to pursue advancement with humility and balance, or to fall into the same patterns of hubris that led to the giants' downfall. The Nephilim remind us that greatness without wisdom is a path to ruin, but they also whisper of a higher destiny, one where humanity can rise not through defiance, but through alignment with the greater harmony of creation. And so, beneath the endless expanse of stars, the legacy of the Nephilim continues not as a shadow of fear, but as a quiet call to remember, to awaken, and to walk the path between earth and sky, with the wisdom earned through ages of forgetting and rediscovery. In the soft murmur of ancient winds that pass over forgotten temples and buried cities, the presence of the Nephilim lingers like a distant echo, a reminder of a time when the world was shaped by beings who stood between the mortal and the divine. Though countless generations have passed since their towering forms last cast shadows upon the earth, their story continues to weave itself through the fabric of human thought, whispering of mysteries yet to be fully understood. As scholars and seekers sift through the remnants of antiquity, they uncover traces of a civilization that once reached beyond its grasp, monuments aligned with the stars, myths that speak of sky gods and giants, and knowledge that seems far too advanced for its time. These pieces form a puzzle, one whose image points back to an age when the Watchers descended and the Nephilim were born. Many believe that within this puzzle lies not only the history of a forgotten race, but also the blueprint of humanity's potential. The Nephilim, though remembered for their fall, were also beings of immense capability, carrying within them the essence of celestial origin. Their story, while tragic, hints at the possibility that humanity itself was touched by this divine encounter, that something of the Watcher's legacy was woven into the human spirit. Throughout the ages, myths have spoken of golden ages, periods when mankind lived in harmony with higher beings, when knowledge flowed freely, and when the boundary between earth and heaven was open. These eras, often ended by cataclysm or divine intervention, reflect the same themes found in the story of the Nephilim: moments of brilliance, overshadowed by the consequences of imbalance. Yet, each time civilization rebuilt itself, fragments of that ancient wisdom survived. The sacred geometries, the astronomical alignments, the stories of giants and Godsoul served as vessels, carrying the essence of a time when humanity stood on the threshold of something greater. These remnants were preserved by mystery schools, guarded by priesthoods, and hidden within symbols that only the initiated could fully comprehend. In this way, the legacy of the Nephilim was transformed from a tale of fallen giants into a quiet undercurrent of spiritual awakening. Those who sought the deeper truths learned to see beyond the literalto, understand that the true giants were not merely beings of great stature, but symbols of elevated consciousness, reminders of what humanity could become when aligned with higher principles. As the modern world advances, many feel an unconscious pull toward these ancient truths. The resurgence of interest in sacred sites, esoteric teachings, and the exploration of consciousness reflects a collective yearning to reconnect with the wisdom that was lost when the Nephilim fell. It is as if humanity senses that it has walked this path before that it once held the keys to profound knowledge, only to see it slip away beneath the floodwaters of time. Today, as we stand at the edge of technological and spiritual frontiers, the story of the Nephilim offers both guidance and warning. It reminds us that while the pursuit of knowledge is noble, it must be tempered by humility and an understanding of the greater harmony in which we exist. The Watchers fell because they gave without wisdom, and the Nephilim fell because they embodied power without balance. Yet, the spark they ignited, the connection between the earthly and the divine, remains alive within humanity. It is a quiet flame, waiting to be nurtured by those who remember the lessons of the past and who choose to walk the path of enlightenment with care. And so, beneath the turning stars and amidst the ruins of ancient grandeur, the presence of the Nephilim endures, not as a shadow of fear, but as a beacon for those who seek to rise not through domination, but through harmony. Not by repeating the errors of giants, but by fulfilling the promise that once shimmered in a world where heaven and earth briefly became one. Beneath the quiet rhythms of the modern world, where cities hum with artificial light and the stars are often hidden from view, the ancient story of the Nephilim remains like a distant heartbeat, steady, persistent, and waiting to be heard by those who remember that humanity's roots stretch far deeper and higher than we are often taught to believe. The giants who once walked the earth may be gone, but their legacy is etched into the subconscious of civilizations across time. Their story is not confined to the past it lives, in the very questions that continue to stir human curiosity. Who are we, truly? What forces shaped us in those forgotten ages? And what remains of that interaction between the divine and the mortal in the world today? Some believe that the answers lie hidden within the concept of ancestral memory, the idea that humanity carries within its collective consciousness the echoes of events long past. In dreams, myths, and intuitive flashes, fragments of the age of the Nephilim may still surface, offering glimpses into a time when the sky opened and giants stood as living bridges between realms. These glimpses often appear in the form of archetypal stories, the hero confronting the giant, the descent of beings from the heavens, the fall from grace after reaching too far. Such narratives repeat across cultures because they speak to something universal, a shared remembrance of a time when humanity was both blessed and burdened by contact with higher powers. As modern science begins to explore the mysteries of consciousness, genetics, and quantum reality, it inadvertently circles back to themes that echo the Watcher's forbidden knowledge. The manipulation of life, the unlocking of hidden dimensions, and the pursuit of transcending human limitations all reflect the ancient story of reaching beyond natural boundaries. The question now, as it was in the days before the flood, is whether humanity can navigate this path without falling into the same patterns of imbalance that doomed the Nephilim. The giants remind us that power without wisdom leads to ruin, but they also hint at the incredible potential that lies within the union of earthly experience and celestial insight. In some spiritual traditions, it is believed that humanity is approaching a time of reckoning, not a destructive judgment, but a moment of choice. A time when the forgotten wisdom of the past will resurface, offering humanity the opportunity to either repeat the errors of the Nephilim or to rise beyond them. This awakening is seen not as a return to the age of giants, but as a fulfillment of what that age was meant to represent: a harmonious blending of matter and spirit, knowledge and compassion. There are those who believe that the Watcher's original intent was not entirely misguided, that their desire to share knowledge with humanity was part of a greater cosmic plan, albeit one that was corrupted by desire and pride. If approached correctly, the legacy of the Nephilim could serve as a foundation for a new understanding, a bridge not built through defiance, but through alignment with the higher laws of creation. In this vision, the ancient monuments, the myths, and the lingering energies of sacred sites are not just relics, they are signposts, guiding humanity toward a deeper realization of its place within the universe. They call to those who are willing to listen not with the ears, but with the heart and the spirit, to remember that we are more than the sum of our material parts. And so, as humanity stands on the edge of discoveries that could once again alter the course of civilization, the silent presence of the Nephilim remains, a reminder of what was lost, but also of what can still be found. The giants may have fallen, but their story endures as a testament to the eternal dance between aspiration and humility, between reaching for the stars and staying grounded in the wisdom of balance. Beneath the ancient sky, where the same constellations shine that once watched over the age of giants, the echoes continue, waiting for those who understand that the path forward is illuminated not only by knowledge, but by the lessons carried in the footsteps of those who came before. As the soft glow of ancient starlight bathes the earth in its eternal silence, the story of the Nephilim stretches onward, not as a tale confined to dusty scrolls or forgotten ruins, but as a living thread that weaves through the unfolding destiny of humanity. The giants of old may have vanished from sight, but their presence lingers subtle, persistent, and deeply entwined with the mysteries that still stir the human soul. Across the ages, the memory of the Nephilim has been preserved in more than just legend. It resides in the architecture that defies explanation, in the myths that refuse to fade, and in the quiet knowing that there was once a time when mankind stood in the shadow of beings who embodied both the grandeur and the peril of mingling with the divine. Many believe that the remnants of this ancient connection are not only found in the outer world but also within. The human spirit, some say, carries echoes of the age when the Watchers descended and the boundaries between heaven and earth were blurred. This inner memory stirs whenever humanity looks to the stars and feels a longing it cannot quite name, a pull toward something greater, something remembered yet forgotten. This longing has shaped countless pursuits: art, science, philosophy, and spirituality, all driven by a desire to reconnect with a sense of origin that lies beyond the material world. The Nephilim, in this context, represent both the dangers and the possibilities of that pursuit. They are the embodiment of what happens when divine potential is wielded without alignment, but also a testament to what might be achieved when balance is restored. Throughout history, secret traditions have hinted at ways to reclaim this lost harmony. Teachings passed down through generations spoke of inner alchemy, transformation of the self, as a means to bridge the gap between mortal and divine, not through force or defiance, but through discipline, understanding, and reverence for the natural order. These paths offered a different kind of ascentone that did not repeat the mistakes of the Watchers, but honored the original intention behind their descent. In these teachings, the giants are seen not merely as warnings, but as markers along the path of human evolution. Their fall serves as a guidepost, reminding seekers that true power lies not in dominion over the world, but in mastery of the self. The greatest heights, they taught, are reached not by towering over others, but by aligning with the rhythms of creation and awakening the divine spark within. As modern humanity stands at the threshold of unprecedented technological and spiritual potential, the relevance of these ancient lessons becomes ever clearer. The tools now at humanity's disposal echo the forbidden knowledge once given by the Watchers: genetic manipulation, artificial intelligence, and the exploration of realms beyond the physical. The question is no longer whether humanity can transcend its limits, but whether it can do so wisely. The story of the Nephilim offers a profound reflection on this moment. It reminds us that the blending of realms, whether celestial and mortal, physical and digital, or material and spiritual, requires more than curiosity and ambition. It demands a deep understanding of balance, a respect for the unseen forces that govern life, and a commitment to walking the path with humility. Some believe that this era holds the potential to finally fulfill what was begun in those ancient days, not through giants striding across the earth, but through the quiet awakening of human consciousness to its rightful place within the cosmos. The Watchers' descent, though flawed, may have planted seeds that are only now beginning to bear fruit in a world more prepared to nurture them. And so, beneath the ancient sky, under the same constellations that bore witness to the rise and fall of the Nephilim, humanity stands poised between remembrance and discovery. The echoes of the giants guide those who listen not toward the repetition of old mistakes, but toward a future where the union of earth and heaven can be realized in harmony. The story continues not in grand displays of power, but in the quiet choices made by individuals who seek to rise with wisdom, to remember with reverence, and to walk forward, carrying the lessons etched into the long shadows of a forgotten race. In the gentle stillness of twilight, when the boundaries between day and night blur, the story of the Nephilim feels closest, as if in those quiet moments, the echoes of a forgotten age drift more freely through the veil of time. The giants may no longer walk among us, but the weight of their presence is carried in the spaces where mystery lingers. in the unanswered questions, the ancient monuments, and the deep pull towards something beyond the visible world. For those who have traced the scattered fragments of this tale through sacred texts, myths, and the silent testimony of stone, it becomes clear that the Nephilim represent more than a bygone race of titans. They embody a timeless theme: the intersection of the divine and the mortal, the perils of untamed knowledge, and the enduring hope that humanity can one day rise to meet its higher potential without falling into the same patterns of imbalance. The Watcher's descent was not merely a disruption of cosmic law, it was a catalyst that forever altered the course of human development. Though their actions led to chaos and eventual judgment, they also introduced a spark in awakening that could not be entirely extinguished, even by the flood. That spark lives on, subtly guiding humanity's quest for meaning, purpose, and reconnection with the greater universe. Throughout the centuries, as civilizations rose and fell, there were always those who sensed this hidden current. Mystics who spoke of a forgotten union between heaven and earth. Poets who wove the memory of giants into their verses. Architects who designed structures that mirrored celestial patterns, as if trying to restore a dialogue lost since the days when the Nephilim walked beneath the stars. These quiet efforts were often overshadowed by the march of history by wars, empires, and the relentless focus on the material world. Yet, beneath it all, the ancient story persisted, waiting for those who could hear its subtle call. It is said that wisdom never truly vanishes, it simply hides until the world is ready to receive it again. Now, as humanity stands amidst technological wonders and explores realms once thought unreachable, the themes of the Nephilim story emerge with renewed clarity. The challenges faced today mirror those of the ancient world. The temptation to wield power without understanding, to unlock secrets without considering the consequences, to reach for divinity without grounding in humility. But unlike the giants of old, modern humanity has the benefit of memory of stories passed down through time that warn of what happens when balance is lost. The Nephilim serve as both a reminder and a guide, urging us to approach the thresholds of discovery with care, to seek harmony where once there was only ambition. Some believe that the Watcher's true gift was not the raw knowledge they imparted, but the opportunity to learn from their mistakes, to understand that the blending of realms is sacred work, requiring patience, reverence, and alignment with the deeper rhythms of creation. In this light, the monuments left behind by ancient hands are more than remnants of a forgotten past. They are invitations. Each stone circle, each pyramid aligned with the stars, each myth that speaks of giants and gods, calls humanity to remember not just what was lost, but what can still be achieved when wisdom guides the quest for higher understanding. And so, under the eternal gaze of the cosmos, the story continues to unfold not in grand gestures or towering figures, but in the quiet awakening of those who feel the ancient pull toward balance, toward a future where the lessons of the Nephilim are not repeated, but transformed into a foundation for true ascension. Beneath the same skies that once watched over a world where giants roamed, humanity walks forward carrying with it the echoes of an age when heaven touched earth, and the hope that this time, the bridge between realms can be crossed with grace. As the moon casts its pale light across the ancient landscapes, the silent testimony of the Nephilim whispers through the night air, a reminder that some stories are too deeply woven into the fabric of existence to ever be truly forgotten. Though their towering forms have long since crumbled into dust, The essence of their tale lingers an echo of a time when the boundaries between the mortal and the divine were tested, and when the world was forever changed by the presence of beings who embodied both wonder and warning. In every corner of the globe, remnants of this forgotten age lie hidden beneath layers of time, waiting for those with the eyes to see and the heart to understand. The myths that speak of giants are not isolated fables, but fragments of a shared human memory, a memory of encounters with forces greater than ourselves, of knowledge given too soon, and of the delicate balance that was shattered in the process. As seekers continue to uncover the mysteries left behind, they find that the story of the Nephilim is not only about what once was, it is about what still is. The same forces that shaped that ancient world remain present today, manifesting in new forms but carrying the same potential for both creation and destruction. The blending of realms, the merging of technology and biology, of consciousness and machine, of human ambition with cosmic potential echoes, the choices made in the days when the Watchers descended. The giants were born from a crossing of lines that were never meant to be blurred without wisdom. Their existence serves as a mirror, reflecting humanity's own journey toward transcendence and the risks that accompany such a path. The story warns that greatness pursued without understanding leads to imbalance, yet it also suggests that within this ancient legacy lies a path forward if only we can approach it with humility and care. Throughout the ages, hidden traditions have preserved the idea that humanity carries within it the potential to achieve what the Nephilim could not: to unite the earthly and the divine without falling into chaos. This is not a task of physical might, but of inner transformation, a quiet awakening that honors the rhythms of creation rather than seeking to dominate them. Some believe that this awakening is already underway. The growing interest in ancient wisdom, the resurgence of spiritual exploration, and the recognition that true progress requires more than technological advancement all point toward a collective remembering, a reawakening of the understanding that was lost when the giants fell. In this vision, the monuments of the past are not relics of failure, but markers of potentiala, reminder that humanity once stood at the threshold of something far greater than itself. The Watchers' descent and the birth of the Nephilim were part of a cosmic story still unfolding, a story that invites each generation to learn from the past and to choose a different path. As the stars wheel overhead, indifferent yet ever watchful, humanity is faced with the same question that echoed through the valleys and mountains of the ancient world. How will we use the knowledge we have been given? Will we repeat the cycle of overreach and collapse? Or will we find a way to rise with balance, guided by the lessons etched into the shadows of those who came before? The Nephilim may be gone, but their presence is felt wherever humanity stands at the edge of discovery. Wherever we reach toward the unknown, drawn by the same longing that once brought the heavens to earth, their story is a quiet companion to our own, reminder that within the pursuit of greatness lies both peril and promise. And so, beneath the eternal sky, the echoes continue, soft, persistent, and waiting for those who understand that the giants of old were not merely creatures of legend, but reflections of a truth that still shapes the destiny of those who walk between earth and stars. As dawn gently brushes the horizon, and the first light of day touches the ancient stones scattered across forgotten lands, the story of the Nephilim stirs once more, not as a tale lost to time, but as a living echo embedded deep within the consciousness of humanity. The giants may no longer roam the earth, But their legacy continues to rise with each sunrise, reminding us that the past is never truly gone. It simply waits to be remembered. For those who listen closely, the lessons of the Nephilim are more relevant now than ever. As humanity stands on the brink of discoveries that blur the lines between the natural and the artificial, between the mortal and the transcendent, the ancient story offers a reflection on what it means to possess power and the responsibility that must come with it. The Watchers descended out of desire and curiosity, bringing gifts that humanity was not prepared to receive. Their children, the Nephilim, became symbols of imbalanced beings of immense potential who fell victim to excess, pride, and disconnection from the divine order. Their downfall was not inevitable, but it was the result of choices made without regard for the delicate harmony that sustains creation. Today, humanity finds itself in a similar position, with the ability to manipulate life at its most fundamental level, to explore realms beyond the earth, and to expand consciousness through technology. We are once again crossing boundaries that demand more than intellect. They require wisdom, restraint, and an understanding of the unseen laws that govern existence. The story of the Nephilim whispers that knowledge, when separated from purpose and reverence, leads not to enlightenment, but to collapse. Yet, it also hints at a deeper truth, that within the human spirit lies the potential to succeed where the giants fail, to rise not through force or defiance, but through alignment with the greater flow of life and the cosmos. Ancient teachings often spoke of a time when humanity would be ready to reclaim the wisdom lost in the age of the Nephilim, not as a return to the past, but as an evolution toward a higher state of being. This would be a time when the gifts once misused could be approached with maturity, when the blending of realms would no longer bring chaos, but harmony. Some believe that this era is unfolding now, quietly and steadily, beneath the surface of global events. The resurgence of interest in consciousness, the rediscovery of sacred knowledge, and the growing awareness that true advancement must include spiritual growth all point toward a collective awakening, a remembering of who we are and the choices that lie before us. In this light, the Nephilim are no longer just figures of warning. They become guides, their story serving as a map through the challenges of power, knowledge, and the quest for transcendence. They remind us that the path to greatness is not found in domination or the reckless pursuit of forbidden truths, but in the cultivation of balance, humility, and connection to the source of all creation. As the sun rises higher, casting light over the landscapes where giants once walked, humanity continues its journey carrying within it the echoes of that ancient age, the memory of what was lost, and the hope of what can still be realized. And so, the story flows onward, beneath the turning skies, through the silent stones, and within the hearts of those who understand that the legacy of the Nephilim is not only a tale of the past, but a living reminder of the potential and the responsibility that comes when earth reaches toward heaven. As the golden light of day stretches across forgotten valleys and ancient hills, the quiet presence of the Nephilim lingers like a shadow just beyond the reach of memory, not as towering figures of flesh and bone, but as symbols carved into the human journey itself. The story of the giants is more than a tale of the past. It is a reflection of humanity's ongoing dance with knowledge, power, and the desire to touch the divine. For those who look beyond the surface of history, it becomes clear that the legacy of the Nephilim was never truly about their physical might. It was about what they represented: the convergence of realms, the blending of human potential with celestial influence, and the consequences of reaching beyond the limits set by natural law without understanding the balance required to sustain such a union. Throughout time, the echoes of this story have surfaced in unexpected ways. In art, literature, philosophy, and spiritual teachings, the themes of ascent, fall, and redemption repeat like an ancient melody carried through the ages. The giants may have fallen, but their story became woven into the very fabric of human thought, reminding each generation of the fine line between greatness and hubris. In many traditions, there is a belief that cycles govern the rise and fall of civilizations, that humanity moves through ages of light and darkness, forgetting and remembering, destruction and renewal. The tale of the Nephilim fits seamlessly within this pattern of cycle, where divine knowledge descends, is misused, and is then hidden away, waiting for a time when it can be approached with the wisdom it demands. As the modern world accelerates toward a future shaped by technologies once thought to belong only to gods, the ancient warnings grow louder for those willing to listen. The pursuit of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and the merging of man with machine echo the same desires that once led to the birth of giants' desires to transcend human limitations, to harness the secrets of creation, and to become as the Watchers once were. Yet, within this pursuit lies the opportunity to choose differently. The Nephilim serve as reminders that it is not the quest for knowledge itself that leads to ruin, but the lack of alignment with higher purpose and the failure to honor the sacred balance that governs all things. Humanity stands at a threshold, much like the one faced in those ancient days, with the power to either repeat the cycle or to rise beyond it. Some believe that the scattered remnants of the Watcher's wisdom hidden in symbols, sacred sites, and the teachings of enlightened souls offer a path forward. Not a path of domination or reckless advancement, but one of integration, where technology and spirituality, knowledge and wisdom, power and compassion walk hand in hand. In this vision, the fall of the Nephilim was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a long journey toward understanding. A journey that humanity continues today as it seeks to remember what was lost, not to revive the age of giants, but to fulfill the promise that once shimmered in a world where heaven and earth briefly met. The ancient monuments, aligned with the stars and resonant with forgotten energies, stand as silent witnesses to this potential. They remind us that those who came before reached for the heavens, and that while they fell, their legacy can serve as a foundation upon which a new balanced ascent might be built. And so, beneath the eternal sky, humanity walks forward, carrying within it the echoes of giants, the memory of choices made long ago, and the hope that this time the blending of realms will be guided not by desire alone, but by wisdom, humility, and a deep reverence for the mystery of creation. The story of the Nephilim flows on, quiet and patient, waiting for those who understand that true greatness is not measured by how high one can reach, but by how harmoniously one walks the path between earth and stars. As evening falls once more and the horizon is painted with hues of fading light, the story of the Nephilim continues to whisper through the twilight. A reminder that some tales are not bound by time, but live on in the spaces between memory and mystery. Though the giants themselves have long since passed into legend, their legacy drifts like a quiet wind through the collective soul of humanity. It is in these moments of stillness, when the world pauses between day and night, that one can almost feel the weight of forgotten ages pressing gently against the present. The ruins, the myths, the lingering questions, all speak of a time when the earth was shared with beings who embodied both the potential and peril of reaching beyond natural bounds. The Watchers, in their descent, did more than alter the course of human history. They revealed the fragility of balance when divine knowledge is given without guidance. The Nephilim, born of this union, became living symbols of that imbalance, beings too great for the world they inhabited, destined to fall beneath the weight of their own unchecked power. Yet, within this tragedy lies a profound lesson that has echoed through every civilization since. The story of the Nephilim is not merely a cautionary tale about giants and celestial beings. It is a reflection of the choices that every society and every individual must face when granted access to knowledge and power beyond their current understanding. Throughout the centuries, those who sought the deeper truths came to realize that the true message hidden within the ancient narrative was not about fear, but about responsibility. The blending of realms, the union of heaven and earth, is not inherently destructive. It is the manner in which that union is approached that determines whether it leads to enlightenment or ruin. Mystics, sages, and spiritual teachers have long taught that the path to higher knowledge must be walked with humility, that the ascent toward divine understanding requires an inner transformation before outer power can be safely wielded. The Nephilim, for all their might, lacked this foundation, and their fall serves as a reminder that greatness without wisdom is a fragile and dangerous thing. In today's world, where humanity holds in its hands the ability to reshape life, explore the cosmos, and unlock the secrets of existence, the echoes of the Nephilim grow ever more relevant. The same themes that played out in the ancient world now unfold on a global scale, offering a second chance to choose a different path. There are those who believe that this era holds the potential to fulfill what was left unfinished in the days of the giants. That humanity, having learned through cycles of forgetting and remembering, is now poised to harmonize the earthly with the celestial, not through domination, but through conscious alignment with the deeper laws of creation. The ancient monuments, the myths of sky beings and giants, the recurring symbols found across continental converge to point toward this possibility. They are reminders that humanity has walked this path before, and that while the past was marked by a fall, the future can be shaped by a wiser ascent. And so, beneath the same stars that once gazed upon a world where giants roamed, humanity continues its quiet journey. The presence of the Nephilim lingers not as a shadow of doom, but as a guide urging us to remember that true power lies not in how much we can command, but in how deeply we understand our place within the vast and intricate tapestry of existence. The story flows on, soft as a breeze through ancient stones, patient as the turning of the heavens, waiting for those who know that the greatest legacy of the Nephilim is not their fall, but the enduring lesson that echoes in every heart that dares to reach for the stars with wisdom and grace. As night deepens and the sky becomes a canvas of endless stars, the quiet tale of the Nephilim stretches across the heavens. A story carried not in loud proclamations, but in the soft, persistent whispers that drift through time. The giants who once walked the earth are no longer seen, but their presence is felt wherever humanity pauses to wonder about its origins, its purpose, and its place within the grand design of creation. For those who stand beneath the starlit sky and feel the ancient pull towards something greater, the legacy of the Nephilim is more than myth. It is a reflection of the eternal relationship between the human and the divine. It is the story of what happens when that relationship is misunderstood, when knowledge arrives without the foundation of wisdom, and when power is grasped without reverence for the balance that sustains all life. Yet, even within the fall of the Nephilim, there remains a quiet hope, the idea that their story, though marked by tragedy, offers a path forward for those willing to listen. The Watcher's descent and the birth of the giants were not the end. They were the beginning of a lesson written into the very fabric of human experience. Across cultures and continents, the remnants of this lesson are preserved like scattered stars in a dark sky-age myth, monument, and symbol, a point of light guiding humanity toward remembrance. The stories of giants and sky beings are not isolated fables, but pieces of a larger mosaic, a memory of a time when the veil between worlds was thin and when humanity was offered a glimpse of its higher potential. The challenge now, as it was then, is how to engage with that potential without repeating the mistakes of the past. The Nephilim remind us that the pursuit of greatness is only noble when it is aligned with harmony. That true advancement is not measured by how far we can reach, but by how well we understand the responsibilities that come with such reach. As modern civilization explores frontiers once reserved for gods, unlocking the secrets of life, venturing into space, and expanding consciousness, there is a quiet call to remember the giants, not as beings of fear, but as symbols of a choice that remains before us. The choice to rise wisely, to blend knowledge with humility, and to honor the unseen forces that weave the cosmos together. Some believe that the ancient Watchers, though bound by their own transgressions, left behind more than chaos. Hidden within their legacy is a blueprint not for domination, but for integration. A way for humanity to step into its rightful place as a bridge between earth and sky, grounded in wisdom, guided by compassion, and attuned to the deeper rhythms of existence. This path does not demand the rebirth of giants in physical form, but the awakening of a giant within the elevation of human consciousness to a state where the divine and mortal can coexist in balance. The monuments, the myths, and the mysteries are there to remind us of this possibility, to guide those who seek not just power, but understanding. And so, beneath the vast and silent sky, the story of the Nephilim continues not as a distant echo fading into obscurity, but as a living thread woven through every moment of human aspiration. It is a story that waits patiently for those who recognize that within the fall of the giants lies the seed of humanity's greatest potential. A potential that can only flourish when nurtured by the lessons of the past and the wisdom to walk a different path. The night carries these whispers forward, soft, steady, and eternal, reminding all who listen that the bridge between realms still exists not in forgotten ruins or lost bloodlines, but in the hearts of those who dare to reach for the stars with grace, reverence, and the quiet strength of understanding. As the quiet hours of the night deepen, when the world grows still and the mind begins to wander beyond the confines of the present, the story of the Nephilim becomes more than just a distant legend. It becomes a gentle reflection of humanity's own journey through the ages. The giants may have vanished from the physical world, but their tale continues to echo not in grand monuments alone, but in the subtle currents that guide human thought, aspiration, and memory. In the soft darkness beneath the eternal sky, one begins to sense that the legacy of the Nephilim is not merely about fallen beings or lost civilizations. It is about the enduring relationship between mankind and the mysteries that lie just beyond reach. It is a reminder that throughout history, humanity has always been drawn toward the unknown, toward the stars, toward hidden knowledge, and toward the faint remembrance of a time when heaven and earth were closer than they appear now. This pull is not one of reckless ambition, but of quiet yearning, a desire to understand the deeper truths of existence and to reconnect with the source from which all life flows. The story of the Nephilim serves as a guide along this path, illuminating both the dangers of forgetting balance and the promise that awaits when wisdom and knowledge walk together. As civilizations rise and fall, the core lessons embedded within the ancient tale remain unchanged. The Watcher's descent and the birth of the giants illustrate what happens when the sacred laws that govern creation are set aside in favor of desire and unchecked curiosity. Yet they also offer a glimpse into what could be achieved when the blending of realms is approached with reverence and understanding. Across the world, in quiet places where the noise of modern life fades, there are those who still listen to these ancient whispers. They walk among the ruins, trace the lines of forgotten symbols, and feel the subtle energies that linger in places once touched by beings who bridge the gap between the celestial and the terrestrial. These seekers know that the story of the Nephilim is not finished. It is a living thread that continues to weave itself into the present. In sacred texts and oral traditions, there are prophecies that speak of a time when the wisdom lost in the days of the giants will be rediscovered, not as a return to the past, but as a step forward into a more harmonious future. A time when humanity, having learned from cycles of ascent and fall, will finally be ready to embody the true purpose of that ancient connection between heaven and earth. This future does not belong to giants of stone or flesh, but to those who carry within them the quiet strength of understanding, who seek not to dominate, but to align, who remember that true greatness lies not in towering over others, but in walking in harmony with the unseen forces that sustain all life. And so, as the stars continue their silent vigil over a world shaped by forgotten hands and ancient choices, the legacy of the Nephilim endures. It flows through the dreams of those who wonder about the mysteries of existence, through the hands of those who build with care, and through the hearts of those who seek to rise not through defiance, but through wisdom. The story moves gently now, like a river beneath the surface, steady and patient, waiting for those who understand that within the fall of giants lies the blueprint for a different kind of ascent tone that honors the balance between earth and sky, knowledge and humility, power and grace. Beneath the quiet night, under the same constellations that once gazed upon a world where giants roamed, humanity breathes in the ancient echoes, and with each breath, the possibility of remembering grows stronger. As the night edges toward dawn and the first hints of light begin to soften the horizon, the story of the Nephilim lingers in the quiet space between darkness and day. A story that has never truly ended, but continues to flow gently beneath the surface of human awareness. The giants may have fallen long ago, their towering forms lost to time, but their presence remains woven into the very questions that stir when the world is still and the soul begins to listen. For those who reflect deeply, it becomes clear that the tale of the Nephilim is not merely about ancient beings or celestial rebellions. It is about the timeless journey of humanity itself. A journey marked by the constant pull between the earthly and the divine, between the desire to ascend and the need to remain grounded in wisdom and balance. The Watcher's descent, the birth of the giants, and the great flood that swept them away are echoes of a larger pattern that plays out in every era where knowledge outpaces understanding and where power is sought without regard for the harmony that sustains creation. Yet, within this pattern lies the seed of growth. the opportunity to learn, to remember, and to choose a different path. Throughout history, in the quiet corners of the world, there have always been those who carried the memory of this ancient lesson. Guardians of forgotten wisdom, keepers of sacred traditions, and seekers who understood that the true legacy of the Nephilim was not one of fear, but of guidance. They knew that the fall of the giants was a reflection of what happens when the bridge between realms is crossed without reverence, but also that this bridge still exists, waiting for those who can walk it with grace. In modern times, as humanity faces choices that mirror those of the distant past, the whispers of the Nephilim grow more insistent. The blending of technology and biology, the pursuit of artificial intelligence, and the exploration of cosmic frontiers all speak to the same longing that once drew the watchers from the heavens. The desire to transcend, to know more, to become more. But the ancient story reminds us that the question is not whether we can reach beyond our limits, but whether we should, and how we choose to do so. The Nephilim fell because they embodied power without alignment, knowledge without wisdom, and ambition without understanding of the greater whole. Now, as the world stands at the edge of its own transformation, the story offers a quiet path forward. It suggests that true evolution does not come from dominating nature or forcing progress, but from harmonizing with the deeper rhythms of existence. From remembering that humanity's greatest strength lies not in how far it can reach, but in how well it can listen to the earth, to the cosmos, and to the silent lessons carried by the echoes of giants. The monuments left behind by ancient hands, the myths that refuse to fade, and the symbols scattered across cultures are all reminders that this path has been walked before. They invite us to pause, to reflect, and to choose with care, to honor the connection between the seen and the unseen, and to rise with the humility that the Nephilim lacked. And so, beneath the soft light of approaching dawn, as the stars slowly give way to the coming day, the presence of the Nephilim remains not as a shadow of doom, but as a gentle guide for those who understand that the greatest journeys are not measured in how high we climb, but in how deeply we align with the truths that sustain all life. The story continues, quiet and eternal, waiting for those who know that within the fall of giants lies the wisdom to build something greater, not in size or power, but in harmony, understanding, and the quiet strength of walking between earth and sky with reverence. As the first rays of sunlight break over the horizon, casting a golden glow upon the ancient stones and forgotten paths, the long and winding story of the Nephilim draws to a quiet close, not with a dramatic end, but with a gentle reminder that some stories are never truly finished. The giants who once walked between heaven and earth may have faded into legend, but their presence endures woven into the fabric of human memory, guiding those who seek to understand the deeper currents beneath the surface of history. The tale of the Nephilim is more than a chronicle of fallen beings, and celestial defiance is a reflection of humanity's eternal journey, a story of aspiration, of reaching toward the divine, and of the delicate balance required when stepping beyond the boundaries of the known. It speaks of the dangers of unchecked desire, but also of the potential that arises when knowledge is tempered by wisdom and ambition, is guided by harmony. As the light of a new day touches the world, humanity stands where it has always stood in the space between earth and sky, between what is and what could be. The ancient lessons carried by the Nephilim echo softly in this space, offering guidance to those who remember that true greatness is not found in towering strength or forbidden knowledge, but in the quiet mastery of balance, purpose, and understanding. The monuments left behind by forgotten hands, aligned with stars that continue their silent watch, are more than relics, they are invitations. They call to those who feel the ancient pull toward connection with something greater, to those who sense that within the myths of giants and watchers lies a blueprint for navigating the challenges of both past and present. In every age, humanity is given the opportunity to rise not through force or defiance, but through alignment with the deeper truths that govern existence. The fall of the Nephilim was not the end of that opportunity. It was a chapter in a much longer story, a reminder that the blending of realms must come through harmony, not through the reckless pursuit of power. Now, as the world awakens once more beneath the same sky that bore witness to the rise and fall of giants, the choice remains: to walk the path with humility, to honor the lessons whispered by the echoes of ancient beings, and to remember that the bridge between the mortal and the divine still stands not as a gateway to domination, but as a path toward true ascension. And so, the story of the Nephilim does not end, it flows onward, quiet and eternal, carried in the wind that moves through sacred places, in the dreams of those who remember, and in the hearts of those who understand that within the fall of giants lies the wisdom to rise differently, to build a future where the harmony once lost can finally be restored. Beneath the ever-turning heavens, as the day begins anew, the echoes remain soft, patient, and timeless, waiting for those who know that the greatest legacy of the Nephilim is not their strength, nor their fall, but the silent guidance they offer to those who seek to walk between earth and stars with grace, wisdom, and reverence for the mystery of all that is. As the echoes of the Nephilim fade into the quiet of a new dawn, we are reminded that some stories never truly end. The giants may be gone, but their legacy lingers in the winds, in the stones, and in the questions we still carry. A tale of power and wisdom, of balance lost and lessons left behind. Perhaps their greatest gift was not the knowledge they gave, but the reminder to walk gently between earth and sky, with humility and with reverence for the mysteries that shaped us all. Thank you for joining this journey through forgotten realms and ancient whispers. May these stories guide you as you drift into rest and dream beneath the same stars that once watched giants walk the earth.